We haven't had a player on in a while. I'm excited.
I mean, you probably haven't really thought this one through, mate, but, you know. Like, you know, I would personally consider it kind of BM to ask someone on who lost the game and then break down the game that you just played in, you know. But then again, that's just me. I don't know about you.
Loco's about the story.
I know.
It's about the facts.
No, I'm about giving Colin a platform.
No, you haven't thought it through. Like, we can't flame him now, can we? I mean, I can't, mate, but you would. You know,
Thor actually, he
exactly how you.
He played well in his series.
Shut the fuck up.
He actually played well.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, mate. Yeah, okay, mate. Right, okay, this is going to be episode 42 of Listen Loco. That's actually pretty good, by the way, to be at episode 42 already, because didn't we start, like, I'm going to say maybe, like a couple of weeks after Worlds?
Yeah.
It can't have been that long after, so it's not bad. For people who don't know, I think Summoning Insight only had less than 80 episodes. I think maybe like 79 or something. And that was like two plus years, I think. Then again, there was extenuating circumstances for that. Loco doesn't have as stable a career as Monty. So, you know, we've got to grind. We've got to hustle. Listen, that's the way the grind goes, right? Mm-hmm. So, okay, our guest for this episode is Solo of Echo Fox fame. Fame used very loosely there. He is on Echo Fox. That's all that matters.
If you guys couldn't tell, I am on Echo Fox.
I've got a question to ask you at the beginning of this episode, right? Which is, you said that you had seen some past episodes. Now, that is a bit awkward, right? Not for me. I don't actually feel shame, mate. But I just wonder, we have flamed you on this show before, right?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have flamed just about everyone except for Froggen.
That is true.
I flame Froggen, don't worry.
Loco flames Froggen all the time, mate, even when he's absolutely wrong. But then what's weird is he then apologises to him in all the interviews, but then goes right back to flaming him the very next week and going, well,
oh my god.
Flames him even more, you know.
Let's go. Let's just start the show.
All right, Justine. Right, so okay, I will just say at the beginning of the show, because in the interest of, like, I think it's good to sometimes pull back the veil of the show and just explain some of the mechanisms for fans. So I'll just say right now, Loco books the show, right? He picks the guests, he reaches out to them, he arranges them. All he does is he just tells me, I've got this person for the show, and I go, oh, great. Now, I personally think it's probably not the smartest move if you want to do, like, genuine analysis to invite on someone who lost the series that we're going to talk about maybe we'll talk about the GGS one first, but we will obviously talk about Echo Fox versus TSM because think about it, Loco, it's going to be really hard to actually be genuine with your opinions because you're going to be, no matter who you are, you're going to be influenced. The same person's in the call. Like, you're going to fucking temper it down a bit, or maybe you're going to give him loads of credit. Like, who knows what you would say if he wasn't here. So it's an approach, certainly. It's a bold approach. So we'll see how it plays out. I'm just saying, Loco, here's the problem. I can handle it, mate. Like, I don't know if you know this, but there's a thing in CSGO that plebs always say, like, oh, he'd never say that to their face. It's like, you obviously don't know me as a person then. Any player who's ever come up to me, like, what did you say about me? I go, I'd have to fucking remember, but you shit, you fucking should be kicked off the team, like, get this guy, and, you know, I just tell him all that. So I can do it, Loco. The problem is, I don't trust you to actually just say what you really think. I think you're just going to, like, fucking you're going to put a lot of ointment on there before you go, oh, listen, I have to bash you a little bit, but listen, it's all right. Listen, I'm going to say you're really good at the end. So you think you can handle it? So you can be truthful?
Okay. I thought Solo was a great guest because I would love to get perspective after the match happened from someone that actually played in the match, and also
do an interview then.
He was busy. He was busy that day.
I was busy. I was busy that day.
He was busy.
Okay. I was busy that day, and I also coached Solo before for about a year, and I've definitely said.
Right, so you're to blame, right? I see.
Okay. I definitely.
Well, to be fair, actually, Loco, that means he's improved a lot.
Yeah,
I played in playoffs, carrying games.
I critiqued him before, and also Solo played particularly well in that series. So while I do have things to critique him about, for Echo Fox TSM series, Solo played pretty well.
Let me just no, I'm not talking about that. But I'm just going to say this, just a second. So what you're telling me is you coached Rush, Phoenix, and Solo.
No, I only coached
on that one team. Now.
I only coached Phoenix Solo, never Rush.
Oh yes, Rush wasn't on the team, right? Yeah, my bad. Then whatever. Right. Anyway, what we'll do then is let's just talk about the TSM one later. Let's get the GGS one out of the way first.
Let's warm up with an easy one.
And then exactly. Then we can go into that when everything's sort of rolling. So in this series, just for people who didn't watch the episode, both of us picked FlyQuest to win that series. I actually even said, Loco, it would be 3-2. I actually did, my friend. So the idea that I just pick them because they're frogging, I told you, there's no team I fucking hate more than Golden Guardians. They are a prison. I don't know where that came from. I think they're a brilliant team. So, in fact, what I think is brilliant about this particular series is, sometimes teams play in the regular split, and then they come to the playoffs and either go way above the level you expect or way below. Both teams here, for me, played exactly the level I would have expected. The result was even exactly as it probably should have been. And I think the right team won just narrowly. I think everything worked out. It was one of those perfect playoff series for me. What do you think?
Really, I thought series actually should have been a Golden Guardians win. And I think Game 5 was kind of a sham because of the draft. So we can get to it later. But I think for me, overall, the series, I love the lead up to Game 5. And Game 5 was hugely disappointing.
Well, yeah, I wonder if you've watched Golden Guardians this split then, mate. Like I said, I thought it was in line with a lot of things I've seen, Loco. Again, I hate this team. So go on then. Come on, Solo.
They were kind of turning it up near the end. I thought GGS was going to win. I didn't think it would go to 5. I thought they'd win 3-1. But I agree with Loco that Game 5, it seemed like they didn't realize at all what was going well in the series. And they just went with this like really bizarre, really high execution comp that is not what was winning them games earlier in the series.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. Let's start there. Like, okay, we don't have to literally. Let me think how we'll do this then. Because the problem is, Game 5 is easily the most interesting one. The draft, the way the game was executed. But the problem is, it's the last game in the series. So even though we're not going to do every game in the series, but just like let's do the gist before we get to that. Then, so why did you think GGS was going to win, Loco?
Well, so I can go from Game 1 to Game 4, and I can kind of like ease into it. So FlyQuest came in.
I mean, I don't know if telling us about all 4 games in a row is easing into it. So I'd just give us some thoughts and then maybe we'll have a discussion about it.
So FlyQuest came in with like a very standard draft, like early Lissandra. So why Lissandra is so popular is her traditional counter picks and stuff like Cassiopeia, Syndra actually suffer so heavily whenever Rek'Sai and Jarvan and Lee Sin got introduced into the meta because you would get bursted down by these 80 junglers so harshly. So the 2v2s actually became near impossible, especially because you're also running cleanse on these kind of control long-range mages that are squishy. So Lissandra was a really popular pick in all across the world. So FlyQuest came in with their Lissandra, the standard draft, and Golden Guardians put Deathly on Varus, Froggen on Karthus, and they made teamfighting very easy and Lissandra wasn't working out. And after that, the series developed into both teams fighting for Varus and trying to first pick Varus away from Deathly and leaving Deathly in a really awkward spot. And Golden Guardians going on to Froggen on Vel'Koz. Like, Froggen played Vel'Koz so fucking well. It was one of the most well-played Vel'Koz I've seen in a while. He used terrain extremely well. He never got caught. And he was such a huge damage threat where Deathly just has to be like an auxiliary, almost utility carry where he's putting in little bits of damage, but most of the fight played around.
You've already said it. We're not even into. This is like Game 2 we're on now. Yeah. Like I said, we really just going to talk for 25 minutes and at the end go thoughts. Like,
okay, all right. Anyways, but I thought Golden Guardians had a really good game plan and like Vel'Koz, Varus, Tahm Kench, they came in with something really solid, and FlyQuest started taking tools away from them throughout the series.
Okay. Right, you also agree? You thought Golden Guardians was going to win Solo?
Yeah, I thought that.
As the series was going on?
Yeah, I think even as the series was going on. I thought that Hanser would be able to kind of be a little bit stronger than Viper, since Viper is kind of a rookie for series. I thought GGS had like a really good game plan where they realized Deathly is not like, he's not going to carry the series as much as Froggen is, so he put him on something easy like Varus. But as Loco was saying, as the series went on, when Varus became unavailable, it seemed like he was having a lot of trouble finding another champion that could get that type of utility, get that type of pressure in the game. And then it became like Froggen literally had to 1v5 to win the series. And I think having him on Lissandra in the last game just like almost made it impossible because none of the other players were really like stepping up.
Okay, right, here's what we're going to do. Since Loco did like a million points there, let's just actually go one by one. Okay. So let's start with the Lissandra aspect. Because remember, in this series, Lissandra lost every single game.
Yeah.
Played in 3 games and lost all of them, right? Yet people like you, Loco, continually say this is a really strong champion, like you want people to play this, right? I don't know if you've followed League of Legends around the world, Loco, but okay, I don't know. I'm not trying to show you up here.
Yeah.
But who do you think the 2 best Lissandra players in the world are?
2 best Lissandra. Faker, probably one of them.
He's got to be one of them, yeah.
And then I'd imagine rookie Lissandra was crazy at Worlds.
I'd say, okay, well, let's make it 3 then. I'd say it's rookie, Faker, and Knight from top spots, right? These are 3 players who are all really good on this champion. You go and watch the comps that they play Lissandra with Loco. First of all, if you go and look at rookie and top, they have like solo lane teams. Then if you go look at Faker, he has triple threat. They have literally people who can carry the game across the board. So they're never playing that player like you're going to hard carry the Lissandra. Like even in the games they're playing it, go look what they play it with. Like they'll play it with like Vladimir top, or they'll play it with like Kalista AD carry. Like the comps that were played in this series make no sense. This is like someone heard what you said and was like, Lissandra's a very strong champion, and then never made any of the comps that make it work.
Well,
like, look at TSM. Yeah. TSM made Lissandra work because they had Kalista as the AD carry. They had carry top laners. Like they had the other threats.
Yeah, I mean, you want multiple threats with Lissandra, and she's a utility mage, but the big reason why Lissandra didn't work for either team is none of the teams really played side lanes or set up flanks properly. Like, Lissandra's really great when you shadow another carry, like when you shadow like a Jax or an Aatrox, like Lissandra goes bottom with them when they're split pushing, and then you kill a target together, and then both of you guys teleport when they're trying to attempt Baron, and then you get control all over the map. That's a very, very common Lissandra play. But either team is not really playing off the side lane, and they're really relying on their mid lane to do damage, then of course like Lissandra is going to be a shit pick. I don't think Lissandra as a pick is shitty. I think both teams just did not play side lane well enough, and throughout the draft, like FlyQuest understood, oh, Lissandra's shit because we're not playing side lanes well enough.
Dude, nobody side laned in this series. This series was just 5v5 team fights.
Yeah.
Like, that's the dumbest thing. What I'm saying to you, Loco, is like, there's no point saying, oh, it's a good pick. It's not a good pick for the LCS, is it? It's a good pick for TSM. There we go. They can play it off. Everyone else, literally, as you see here, was doing that stupid-ass thing that coaches do, where every coach in the LCS thinks he's fucking Coma, and he goes, the global meta means I will pick these shots. It's like, you aren't even picking stuff your players can play. Like, what's mad is, Loco, the guy who's like, I didn't know that Golden Guardians had like 3 coaches or something. So I thought like an Aero was their coach. But you know the guy technically listed as their head coach is this guy called Jimmy, yes. This guy had the gall to defend that pick and literally say it just wasn't executed well. Well, yeah, in the same way as like fucking, you know, like the worst wide receiver can't execute like a fucking deep 80-yard run down the field, can he? Like, that's such a stupid comment. Like, you know, if you say that, oh, we just like basically nobody could execute this pick, then why are you picking it? Obvious question.
Colin, give your opinion and I'll give my opinion on the
Yeah, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I agree with Thorin. I mean, it didn't really make a lot of sense to me. I think on its own, Lissandra is good, and if you play well, it looks really broken. But that just isn't what GGS is about. GGS is about Froggen being a, like, you know, control style mid laner, you know, farming up the camps, getting a huge CS lead, just getting really big, and being able to like team fight and position well on things that don't have a lot of mobility. And I think additively to the Lissandra, like picking Lucian for Deathly, like, not to say that this guy is like, I don't want to flame him, but this is not the guy you want to give Lucian, just because this is not the guy that's gonna like smash lane, you know, call for resources to dive bottom to get Drakes and everything, hit tower. Like, he needs something utility. Like, I think Ashe would have been a good supplement for the Varus because it's like very similar playstyle. And yeah, it was just kind of disappointing to see them kind of completely change their identity in the last game, and they lost because of it.
Yeah.
Like, Loco, I'll give you the analogy here, right? The explanation rather. This is exactly why global meta thinking does not work unless you have the best teams in the world. Because global meta thinking, right, makes this comp not the end of the world, actually, as long as your AD carry is really good. Now, this is exactly where I hate LCS players. Because, like, you did that interview with Froggen, right? And you had the gall to tell this motherfucker, when he said, well, you know, like, he basically implied, like, let's not blame any player because, you know, we all contribute to the wins and, you know, we all lost the game together. And you actually said, great answer. That's a shit answer, you moron. That's a PR statement, you could say. That is the worst answer ever. Like, why do you think Solo over there, who isn't in his team and doesn't have to be nice, said that Froggen basically had to 1v5? Well, that's not true. No, it's a 5v5 game. You know, you win as a team, lose as a team. Well, tell you what, you're going to lose as a team a lot if you put the whole game on Captain's back. This guy's never even played in the playoffs before. Like, that's not even a reasonable scenario, is it? Like, if there's one of the things that definitely that's ridiculous is he's like a lane AD carry. He's not even a very good team fight carry. So there's 2 things about this that I want to bring up because they both play into each other. It's the interaction there. Because again, one thing people won't know actually, Loco, about Rookie, a player who plays Lissandra, like you're saying, is actually, you do know IG is actually a triple threat team as well. Like, even when they have the strong solo lanes, Jakilov has games, where he gets like 12 kills and stuff. Like, this guy fucking pops off. So he doesn't have Deathly down there, mate. He's not just going, if it doesn't go well for me, you can just carry the games. No, that isn't going to happen. So there's two factors to talk about here. One, when was the last time you saw Deathly carry a game? He had the Varus game, there's one. And a lot of that was just long range shooting people. And then the second part is, forget like the whole control mage part. Froggen's strength in team fights is always to be at the back doing damage all the time. Why would you give him a champion where he's like engaging into the fight? Like, remember that moment where he went into the mid lane and they all just killed him instantly and he was completely separate? That's because you gave this guy something that is alien to his playing style, but that's all you can do with it. So none of it made.
To answer your question, when did Deathly last carry? In relegations versus us versus Mad Life and Ricara. That's the last time he carried.
Because by the way, one of the things, if you notice, I don't ever like purely just flame people. Like, I've even said on the past shows, like, I don't think Deathly's a good player, but you also, as a result, I think I've said this to you before, but I think as a coach, you actually have a really important responsibility to never ask someone to do something they can't do. Like, if you ask someone to do something and they fail once, okay, that's on them. If you keep asking them over and over again, like, do this thing, it's like, they can't do it, that's actually your fault. Like, the coach is the one who put this draft up.
So, to put it really simply, a coach's job is role definition. You define what role you should be doing as a coach and what players should be doing. And a player's role is role execution. Their job is to execute the role that's given to them. Like, Golden Guardian's coach, as a coach, failed in defining the roles for the players. Froggen, play an engager, play a utility mage, that buys time. Like, you failed to define the correct role for Froggen. Like, as you said, Froggen's a very good backline player. And as good as Froggen is, there's things he suffers from. And I think playing Lissandra and playing engage and playing utility is one of them. Like, he had points in the game where he's flash ulting a Morgana that still had her shield up. Like, what the fuck are you doing as a Lissandra? And then for Deathly also, you defined the wrong role for Deathly. Like, as Lucian, you have to be dominant in lane. As Lucian, you have to play up and be very, very clean about dodging out CC and baiting out stuff. Like Zven versus Echo Fox, like Zven did a great job of that on Lucian. Like, vice versa, Deathly is not very good at that. Like, you did not understand your players. And the worst part is, he defended the decision. He said it was up to execution. You did not understand your players well enough. You did not understand the flow of the series well enough. And you ask them to execute on something they're going to have a hard time doing. Like, you failed as a coach in that regard.
Here's what he did, right? You're right. Here's the thing, right? Okay, if you were in a sword fight and I gave you a fork instead of a sword, technically, right, Loco, you could win if you understood that the only way to win is like to dodge in and to stab the guy in the eye. You could probably win. But the problem is, if I gave you a fork and you tried to fight like it was a sword, well, you're going to lose, right? That's the analogy. Like, it wasn't execution because obviously the player didn't know what he was going to do. That's the other thing, right? Definitely in a game, comms can break down. You know, you're under pressure, so the wrong person dies early. That can all happen. That wasn't anything that happened in this game. Like, I guarantee you, if you paused the game 5 minutes in and said to Deathly and Froggen, like, what do you do what is your win conditions in this game? They wouldn't know. They wouldn't know, mate. I guarantee you. You could just see from the way they played. Like, they didn't understand how they were going to win this game. That's why all these weird plays that you were talking about are happening, because it was just panic plays.
Normally I'm pretty... it's hard to, like, blame the coach, because I know a lot of players have say in the draft and, like, what they're going to play. Yeah. But I will say it is very shocking that... maybe I'm wrong, but they won to Lucian Braum, right?
Yeah.
So in the meeting before, like, they were going to get into Game 5... You know they're talking about what we're going to pick early, and they just decided that this was the best. So everyone there, I think, is to blame equally for, like, that game plan.
Sure.
And maybe it worked really well in scrims, because I don't know, but I think it's very bizarre that you go over in between the games, and that's your solution to, like, how you're going to win Game 5. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And then you go straight into, like, the Lissandra third pick, I think, or I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, Lissandra third pick. That was their one.
Yeah, it's just super bizarre. Like, you usually know what your first 3 picks are going to be, to, like, some degree. And yeah, it was just really weird that was like, I don't know.
That's their conclusion. That's what they came up with.
Yeah, that's what they came up with, and it's really bizarre to me. That's not what I would have done. I was really shocked to see that was the solution, but yeah, it's hard to say.
That's the thing though, Loco. Like, I'm not even trolling when I say this. That's why I'm actually surprised that you're like, I thought GGS should have won. It's like, if you watch them all season, Loco, this is what should have happened. Like, they did this all split long. They would have, every time they found, like, winning comps, they did that like anti-Korean thing where you just go away from them. You go, right, well, we've got that sorted, so we'll start doing other shit that we're not good at yet.
I mean, they're learning. Like, they're not stupid people. Like, these are 5 competent players, like people like in LCS, like throughout the LCS season, they're like, okay, so when we tried this comp like in LCS during the season, we're trying to get into playoffs. We're trying to we're trying to expand our champion pool. We're trying to expand our champion style. Like teams do that in LCS, but when it comes to playoffs,
you don't expand your champion pool for the playoffs. That's what the whole split was for. Same as your like, you know what? Like, here's the thing. I'm not flaming you entirely, but the way you phrased that was really badly. When you were like, they're 5 competent players. Like, what does that mean? Competent? What, they have hands?
I know that. I'm telling you, like, they're not stupid. Like, as they do dumb things, like during the season.
Are there any stupid players in the LCS?
There's some dumb ones. I won't call them out by name, but there's definitely dumb ones.
None of them are GGS.
I mean, I actually think there's 1 or 2 that I would call dumb. But okay, but the dumb players don't have to. Dumb players don't have to vocalize. Like the smart players can shut the dumb players down, and I would think Froggen's one of the smarter players, and I think Froggen's one of the more opinionated players. I'm very shocked that Froggen wasn't like, no, give me Karthus, give me Vel'Koz, give me a backline carry and I'll play. So I actually think Froggen has some blame in this because Froggen knows what he's good at, and Froggen knows how they were winning and how they were losing. So,
do you know what's hilarious?
What's hilarious?
Because like you were the reason why he didn't say anything there, mate. Because people like you tell players like Forgiven and Froggen and Dardoch to never do that. What you say is to be here's the thing. I get why people do this, Loco. In the West, star players tend to get egotistical because they know they're the best, right? And so as a result, they think, oh, I should have everything my way. And so what you have to do to socialize them to a team, you have to drill in them all the time. You have to sacrifice sometimes, and don't be too hard on your teammates. That's good because normally they're so egotistical that just like brings them to level. The problem is, what happens is when you tell people, this happened to people like Forgiven, by the way, he's had splits where he wasn't even playing carry champions. What happens is when you tell those guys, it's a global meta, everyone can carry, stop saying that you're the star, they accept things like this. They go, oh, well, I don't want to be egotistical. I will just play. Oh, go on, Definitely. Let's see if you can carry the game, mate. Your turn. Heck, put him in the game, coach. Like, people like you create that atmosphere, mate. I agree. If I'm the coach of Golden Guardians, I'm saying this. Listen, Definitely, no offense, but we're just going to play, like, team fight AD carries for you. Just play back, stay alive. You don't have to do too much. Just do damage. That's a simple job of an AD carry. Poncer, you're going to get like a mixture of bruises and carries. Sometimes, Froggen, you have to be on very strong picks for you in team fights. Like, I'm going to be brutal with them. Your version of it, Loco, is like, well, we're all smart and we can all adapt. And if we all just learn and go through all the experiences together, it's like, mate, they're not in a fucking hyperbolic time chamber. You play like 9 weeks and then you go in the playoffs and that's it.
I think how you should be dealing with egos is not toning down the egos completely and being like, no, stop being egotistical. No, you can't do this. You can't do that. You want to enable it, but you want to kind of channel it in a better way. Like, Froggen, if you think you really are that good, if you really think you are that much of a carry, like, show this in practice. Like, show if you're that much of a carry and you can already do it, then I want to focus the practice on definitely working on this part, not so much on you carrying, because I already know you can do it. Like, you can channel egos and you can make it productive for the team, but when all the fucking eggs are in the basket, when it's game time and you have to make the decision on who's going to get the ball to shoot, then yes, you give it to the star player. Like, you let Froggen carry. Like, I'm not saying, we should all hold hands, kumbaya, like everyone on our team can carry. It's you channel egos in different ways and you make practice efficient for everyone, but like game time, like give the ball to the correct player. And I don't get.
I agree with you. I think Froggen also fucked up by agreeing to play the pick. I think that was a really stupid move on his part.
My biggest frustration with it is the Golden Guardian coach defending the decision and not taking some fault for it and being like, you know what, we fucked up. Like, this is a part that we're gonna learn from. Maybe like behind the scenes, like that's what he's saying, but this was in so many ways fuck up. I don't even think it's an opinion. Almost everyone I talked to regarded it as a fucked up. When I interviewed Thorin was like, yeah, we were really happy when we saw the first 3 picks because they were moving away from what was winning them the game. Like, I mean, Froggen didn't say anything about it. Mark Z also agreed it was like a shitty draft. Like, everyone here agrees it's shitty. Like, I don't think it's a hot take or like a strong opinion that I'm having. I think the general consensus is you fucked up draft hugely and you took away a chance from your team potentially winning the game.
Yeah, I think I'm sure as like a coach, like objectively that draft is good if you're a different team. But yeah, like as Thorin is saying, like that's not the team you have. Coach needs to realize that and pick something that's going to be able to win for those players and what they can thrive in.
Also, elsewhere in the series, I'll give you another example. So the game that GGS lost, I think it was game 2, right? The one they lost to Swain. Here's another example of a team, Loco, that if you're telling me they're competent players, they learned all that. Well, they didn't prove it in this game, mate. Like, at one point in the game, they do like a 4-man dive onto Swain when it's in the top rush on his own, and they get it to like, I think they get it to like 3/4 health or something, mate. Like, it's not target selection, Loco. There's one target, and they couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you've let that champion get to that point in the game, you've lost already. Like, how are you going to win the game? If 4 of you can't kill him at once, how are you going to win the team fight?
I actually don't think that's that bad. Like, you learn, okay, Lissandra into Swain this series, like, Pobelter's good enough on Swain, like, this shit isn't going to work. Like, I know I'm just going back to the same point. Like, I think, like, making mistakes, like, that in the series is like kind of whatever. It's just going back and doing the same thing. That's where it's dumb. Like, a mistake is not a mistake when you do it the second time. At that point, it's a choice. They made the choice to be Lissandra. If we're bringing up other things throughout the series, one thing I really want to commend, and one player I really want to commend, is Pobelter. I think some people were like, oh, Pobelter was so bad on Irelia, he inted, blah, blah, blah. I don't think he inted at all. Like, a lot of times he had to start fights for his team because no one else was playing engage champions, or no one else could engage on the team. So a lot of times Pobelter forced an engage on Irelia. It's not easy to do, and he was able to get it off decently, and it was a core reason of why FlyQuest was able to take up game 4. I think Centurion was on Karthus, so he couldn't engage, and it's usually Centurion and Pobelter on engage, or JJ on engage with Ornn, and JJ wasn't on Ornn, so it was really crucial that Pobelter was able to engage with Irelia, and him being able to do that, and him stepping up in game 5 with Zoe were so fucking crucial to FlyQuest winning.
Okay. Do you have any thought on the other players in the series, Solo?
Yeah, I thought Pobelter played really well, especially the last 2 games. I think Viper turned it around. I thought the first 3 games it was really rough for him, because I think he was just kind of getting over some nerves. But the last game especially, and the 4th game, I thought he was doing a lot better. So glad to see that he's having some growth. And Santorin was super solid the whole entire series. I mean, that guy's a monster for sure.
The funny thing is, Loco, I know in the past episodes, I actually thought the best player on this team was Wild Turtle. He actually had a pretty quiet series all in all. Like, he was just kind of chilling. He never made a massive misplay generally, but he didn't really do that much.
I think Turtle's biggest contribution was taking away Vera's first pick from Deathly and being competent on it, or sometimes great on it, because I'm sure they weren't practicing Varus that much, and that's not really a Turtle style of champion, but they had to take the bullet and make sure they kept first picking Varus, so Deathly doesn't get it. So Turtle really wasn't in a good position to carry, and I think he did like an okay job. He was never given the tools and be like, hey, you usually play Kai'Sa. Here, play Kai'Sa. But we're going to have to first pick Varus, and you're going to have to play a completely different role. So I thought Turtle was fine. One player I do want to... Go ahead, Solo.
I was just going to, commend Turtle on that as well. That's like a really veteran move to be able to... Like, I'm sure they didn't practice that as much. And to just be able to go after game 1 and be like, Turtle, we need you to, like, prioritize this, and we have to have you pick this. Even if he's not comfortable with it, he has to, like, change the whole dynamic of their draft. And moves like that are just, like... They seem really small on paper because you're just kind of picking a champion, but... those are veteran moves to be able to kind of take something away from the other team.
And then the other player I kind of want to critique is Contracts. I think in Game 5, Contracts Kindred was so bad. I actually thought it was...
Dude, this is another reason why I'm amazed you thought Golden Guardians was going to win. Because have you been watching all their games? Like, the 2 things that happen all the time is Deathly doesn't carry team fights, and Contract always gives away early kills. Like, this series was unreal, mate. The amount of times this guy gets caught in the fog of war and killed as a jungler. Like, this guy thinks he's like an invade master. He's not, he just invades. He hasn't got the master part, he just invades.
Well, there's like a concept to playing Kindred at like a high tier level, and I think a great example of it is Svenskeren playing Kindred versus TSM. The infamous moment where Bjergsen got caught on Zoe, where he ulted forward to get the poke, and they were chasing him down. Svenskeren, as he was chasing down Bjergsen, didn't ult, as both of them were dying. Because if Svenskeren ulted and kept both of them alive, TSM would have collapsed in time to save Zoe. But Svenskeren didn't ult, died, got Bjergsen low, and Licorice was able to finish off Bjergsen. I forget if it was Licorice, but someone was able to finish off Bjergsen. Whenever Contracts gets goad on by Irelia, like when Viper's going on him and Irelia's on top of him, he ults so much. He kept ulting and he kept saving Viper and himself, and Viper would wait for his cooldowns to come back, instantly kill Contracts, lib, or go on rest of his team. It was so fucking bad. I was shocked that Contracts played that bad in Game 5, and he was someone like I was kind of counting on to be a little bit more clutch. Like I wasn't gonna count on Deathly, I wasn't gonna count on Ole, but if the 3 players I was gonna count on were Froggen, Contracts, and Hunter, and Contracts completely dropped the ball in Game 5.
I mean, even Game 4 when he was down like 2 levels in jungle to the Karthus. I mean, that was.
Yeah.
I mean, it basically took him out of the game. I mean, he was basically not in the game for a lot of it. And I mean, he does have this habit of, I don't know his pathing exactly, but having these paths that are high risk, and he ends up losing like a lot of camps, and it almost just deflates the team, especially in the first 10 or 15 minutes. And it's hard for him to like ever get something going. So he was a bit of a liability near the end for sure.
Because the thing is, I even see that. That's one of the problems I have with this team is like, in a way, Loco, I agree. Like, all these players can be LCS players. It's just on this team, they don't really fit too well together. Like, for example, Contracts on this team doesn't make sense because this team's pretty good at laning, actually. And generally, they don't want to, like, dive early and all that sort of. So his kind of, like, constant aggro play doesn't really make sense. That's why he's on his own when he gets caught all these times. Like, there's no follow-up half the time, which also makes you wonder what the comms are like. If you're going in, but no one's even coming to help you. So that's kind of rough to me. Like, I feel like if you put him on a different team, like I thought Acadian on TSM looked like that early on, but the difference is they follow up with him. Like Bjergsen roams with him when he comes in the jungle. Oh, the one guy I want to give credit to actually on the FlyQuest side, aside from all the players you all mentioned, because obviously Santorin played pretty well. Paul Belter obviously was the main carry. I think actually the interesting thing, if you watch this split, is when people hear that Viper's done well, it's not like he's some like lane fucking sick dominant player. But he is so good when he gets into the team fights. Like his target selection is really, really good. Like he always knows who he should be going on to. And almost every time in those games that GGS lost, he just blew someone up in the team fight.
I thought he played like ass the first 3 games, and in Game 4, Game 5, he really stepped up.
Yeah, those are 2 of the games that they won there. Well done.
Yeah, maybe not the words I would use, but yeah, he definitely stepped up later on.
Yeah.
To be fair, he was playing against Haunter. You've got to give credit to Haunter. He's a pretty good player overall.
He picked Aatrox into Kennen and got solo killed in the first game to give up first blood.
Okay, that was for sure some stage nerves.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, that was.
I don't
that
have
was
a good
something
excuse for that, but
he just got scared on that one, mate. He just fucked it up. That wasn't the end of the world.
It did look
Plus,
bad
the whole
though.
thing is, like, I don't know why in that scenario exactly. Like if you have that champion, I mean, Solo will tell you did exactly this. You just wait till the team fight, don't you? And then the team fight, you're going fucking balls deep on everyone. Obviously, that's the dream if you're a top laner.
Yeah. I will give him credit to Game 4 and 5, but I'm not sure if I can point at him as one of like
a rookie.
Yeah.
You know, if you've never played in the playoffs before, that's pretty legit to come up in the big games.
Yeah, I think if he can, I don't know. I mean, I don't know why his laning is not like great, or it could be better, but maybe it's like stage nerves, maybe it's just, overall practice, but I think if he can get his laning to like a, at least like a 50-50 level, then I mean, yeah, they can be like super dangerous because he is really good in team fights and he does have that awareness. But yeah, I think that it'll be even better for next series versus TL, because I don't think Impact is going to be like nearly as punishing as Hanser will be, especially in pick ban. So yeah, that could be a point that they can strive off of.
Sure. And also, like you said, Loco, like, tell you what, if you hadn't even seen the whole split and you'd only seen that 3rd game, Loco, you'd have already had to apologise to Froggen immediately after that game. Because let me know who of your favourite mid laners have played immobile champions on a team that doesn't work well around them and never getting caught once. Not once in the game. If you're a jungler in the LCS and the other guy picks Vel'Koz, you're like, this is my fucking wet dream. I'm going to be going in on this guy all day long. You couldn't get to him. You could not ever get to him.
Froggen played extremely, extremely well on Vel'Koz, where he was using terrain. I do think it's extreme to say that he never got caught. There was one time where he pushed up mid without
He got
flash.
caught in Game 4, man.
Yeah.
He didn't get caught in Game 3.
Yeah, Game 3 he never got caught. And then all the way up to Game 4, before that one point in mid, he didn't get caught at all. Yeah.
I'd agree.
Alright, let's move on to the next one.
What's the next one like? What, the next series?
Yeah, TSM
Well, let's give some parting thoughts on this one then. So, okay, I'll ask it this way then, because this is the part I find bizarre. I actually think FlyGods is a better team than Golden Guardians, mate. Like, individually, I think Froggen's better than a lot of the players on FlyQuest, but like as a team, I've always thought Golden Guardians was a very flawed team. I actually think FlyQuest is a solid team, mate. The only problem they have is this: they don't have like a superstar player. So I already feel bad for them going against whoever they would have played in this scenario. It would have been a tough spot for them. So like, I actually think they can win a game off team. Like, they could make this interesting. Probably can't win the series, but if you think Golden Guardians should have won, surely you're super down on FlyQuest versus Team Liquid.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't want to be a broken clock and just say the same thing over and over again, but the series would have been so different in Game 5. They pick something like a Karthus. They don't draft Lucian. Like, as Colin said, you just draft Ashe for Deathly. Or you even put him on Jinx, like a very easy team fighter with like a lot of range. Like, there was just so many things they could have done different to give their players a better shot at the game. And that's why I'm really kind of... I had a sour taste in my mouth. At the end of the series, I was like...
You got robbed.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god, Game 5 is going to be so fucking sick. I'm curious how FlyQuest is going to deal with Golden Guardians, like, adaptation and their, like, other backline carries. They're going to ban Vel'Koz, maybe Froggen plays Karthus again. Maybe Deathly, like, play, like, Ashe or Jinx. Like, there were just so many things they could have done, and they didn't do it. Like, my mind was blown. Oh my god, yeah, I have nothing else to say.
That's it. By the way, as an aside, one thing I will say about that, because this is a general thing I've always noticed in League of Legends, is one of the reasons I used to love blind pick in the LCK local. I mean, obviously, technically, it wasn't in the LCK; it was an OGN, right? So one of the reasons I loved blind pick is then you actually got to see what people do under pressure. Like under pressure, because you can't know what the other guy's going to pick. Under pressure, do you pick your comfort champion knowing that he technically knows what your comfort champion is? Or do you do a gamble? And then the problem is if you gamble wrong, insane pressure going to be upon you at that point in time. This is an example right now, again, of bad coaching. If you have inexperienced players, if you have a team that's not that great together, why are you trying weird stuff in the last game, the one with all the pressure on it? That's exactly when, as you say, if things are open that you play and that you've won games on, you just go to that. You know, you just go, hey, let's at least play what we understand. You know, that way, if you're under pressure, you're not going to shut down completely. Whereas in this game, like I say, they were trying to like figure out during the game even how they were going to win the game.
I'm not saying the Golden Guardians coach is bad. I'm saying he made a wrong decision. And what's bad is he's defending that decision. Long as he learned from it and doesn't make the same kind of decision or changes his thought process, it's fine. It's just the thing that irks me the most is that decision on top of defending it.
I won't go as far as you, though. I still don't know that Golden Guardians would actually have won Game 5, even if they'd have drafted differently.
I'm not saying they would have won. I'm saying they would have had much better chance
Yes, I agree. They didn't. Yeah. That's the problem. The game was depressing because you just kind of knew very quickly early on like they were never going to win it. But I still think they would have actually lost. I still think FlyQuest was a better team overall.
Okay. Colin, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've said it all for sure.
Okay. You think they can do anything against Team Liquid?
I think they might be able to take a game, but I think TL, especially having the slump near the end of the split, is going to come back and be the powerhouse again. And I think they're going to have like a statement series versus FlyQuest.
Thorin, let's come back to the semifinals after we do the other quarters.
All right. Right, let's talk about the other season. So Echo Fox versus TSM. Now, immediately, I'm going to have to bring up Two-Faced Loco here. Because what Loco did, right, was first of all claim that he was really excited to see this play. For real, he said this. He was really excited to see this play.
I was.
I then immediately countered and said, I don't know why, because TSM is probably going to stomp the series. Like, I don't know why you would think that's like a really exciting one. And he then, in classic Loco fashion, said, oh no, I still think TSM wins the series. It's like, you know, he makes complete statements. I don't know how they connect from the same person. So, was this actually the series you expected, Loco?
I did not expect Rush and Phoenix to break down that hard as the series went on. And also there was underperformance from Apollo later on in the series, which I was also extremely surprised by. Like, most notably the Xayah versus Lucian game, where he was just dropping so far down in CS. So we saw the Phoenix Rush that I kind of expected to see earlier in the season, where I was like, oh, they're going to play careless, they're going to be very high ceiling, but they're not going to have good coordination, they're going to die to junglers a lot, they're going to be dying in base, Phoenix is going to get ganked a lot, Rush is going to be dying in base. And that's not the Echo Fox I saw in the last 3 weeks of LCS, right? So we saw the Echo Fox from like the start of the split again, so yeah, that's why I was kind of excited for the series, because Echo Fox was on an upswing, and I thought I would see a better and better version of Echo Fox. I thought maybe the Echo Fox I see is even better than the one I saw at the end of LCS. That's why I was excited, but we didn't get that.
There we go, Solo. I didn't know this, but the #1 Echo Fox fan in the country's here, because I thought you guys lost like 6 games in a row and then just got in the playoffs. Like, this guy thought you were like on the way up. So, oh, everything can keep going. Keep doing great.
Give
us your thoughts. Okay. Yeah, go on.
Me? Okay, I think everyone can agree Echo Fox at the end of the season had a huge upswing.
Yeah, they were all right.
Yeah. I think for sure.
They had a huge upswing at the end of the split.
Right, what does huge upswing mean, Cocksucker?
Beating C9.
How many games did they win?
Well, it's not how many games. It's beating C9 and beating TL. I think that's what's...
How's that a huge upswing? Yeah, okay, they got upsets over teams that literally, like, first of all, Team Liquid inted the fuck out of those games. Just be real.
Yeah, they didn't. But that...
They probably had game money on the other side of that one. Fucking hell, that was unreal. And then the Cloud9, okay, fair enough, Cloud9 was slumping. That's fair enough.
So they were on a huge upswing. We don't have to argue.
They were on an upswing. How about just they were on an upswing?
They're on okay. We don't have to argue the semantics of it.
A mild upswing.
Okay. All right.
Here's what we'll do, okay? Give us all your thoughts, or at least a bunch of them now. So that way, if a flame, we can do it separately. It doesn't have to influence anything. So give us some of your thoughts on the series here, Solo.
Yeah, I mean, going into the series, we felt confident. I mean, I played against TSM before, and it is like a kind of a really different feel, and I kind of felt some of the same kind of magic that we had last year with Clutch. And then after game one, where we performed really well, even though we kind of had some like missteps. I mean, we got like ace with Baron. We lost like first tower. Like we had some like really stupid mistakes, and we were still able to like dominate the game. And then going into game two, you know, I thought we felt really good, and we picked like a more scaling comp because, you know, we kind of had this plan versus what they do if they had Lissandra. And we just kind of were really undisciplined in how we chose our fights and what things to kind of contest. You know, we died at the dragon. We gave up some like free kills around towers. And that kind of, those kind of mistakes just ended up happening more and more throughout the series of just being undisciplined when it came to setting up. And you saw that game 2, game 3 to game 4, where we would kind of just give away free kills, and then it would snowball into a point where we're not able to like contest the Baron, or we would lose two or three people around Baron, and then, you know, game is pretty much lost. So I mean, I think if we were a little bit more disciplined, we could have won. But you know, they are a good team, and they played really well. And I was really surprised that they came back so well after game 1, because I thought they would be really we would like shake them a lot, because they had not lost a game for 5 weeks or something, right?
Sure, yeah.
And I mean, they bounced back, and I was really impressed.
Solo, so it was in mic check, but after game 1, when they were going into game 2, Acadian was like, this one's going to be a swift one. I can feel it.
The thing is, if I was TSM, I wouldn't have been that mad about that first game. Like, I thought they actually did a bunch of mistakes early in that game. Like, and then, to be fair, like probably the best part of the game for Echo Fox was like they did play the Baron very, very well, where they just got a free Baron completely and pushed them all off. That was quite good, but I don't know. I always thought TSM was the better team in this series.
Yeah, definitely TSM. So,
and by the way, I've got a question for you. What the fuck was Phoenix thinking when he had Swain?
He's not going to answer. He's not going to answer. So it's going to have to be between you and me.
The way out. Like, dude, he was 100% of the way out of that. The gank had failed.
It's going to be
the mid game.
Yeah. It's going to be between you and. Oh shit! You're actually go ahead.
I mean, I can understand what happened. I mean, he was just kind of being cocky, I guess. I mean, I wouldn't say there's like a specific reason. He thought he was safe and like well enough in turret, and he got punished. Like Acadian just flashed on him and killed him. Yeah, I mean, it happens.
So to explain the matchup a little, before your first back as Swain, you're actually really vulnerable because you don't have your ultimate and you don't have any of your defensive items. So usually you buy Roa on your first buy, or you buy multiple Dark Seals. So what if you get a lot of regen and you can maintain high HP. And then after you have your ultimate, you're actually a really hard target to kill, because long as like you don't get insta bursted, like
as everyone saw in that game with Pobalt earlier.
Yeah, Pobalt Swain versus Frog and Lissandra. And then this game, like pre-6, pre-first back is where you're the most fucking dangerous. And he keeps dying over and over again. It's like 5 seconds before Rush can help him, or right after he sees the jungler. Like, this is what drove me fucking crazy when I coached Phoenix. It's like, we would talk about the matchup, like he would explain the matchup to me, and then we would try to standardize the matchup much as possible. We would talk about what to do when the jungler starts this side, where to place your ward, like if your wave is stuck, call for the jungler. Like, we would go through all this, and it would get thrown out the window whenever we would go into matches, and it drove me insanely nuts, because like, we worked on this, we practiced this, like you're so mechanically good, like you lane really well. All you have to do is back up 5 seconds here in this timing that we talked about previously, and he doesn't do it. And I was so impressed by Song and Tyler, because later on in the season for Echo Fox, Phoenix stopped doing that. Phoenix was not that person. And then when we went into the series, it's like everything that he was coached on and everything he learned in the split disappeared. And he regressed back to like the Phoenix that doesn't care about where jungler is. Phoenix that doesn't care about potential danger. So, oh my god, this series was also super fucking frustrating to watch because of Phoenix and Rush.
Just to check, so you know when you were criticizing the way that Contracts played Kindred, again, I need to know the way the mechanics of the ult work. When the ult works and you're almost dead, do you just walk outside it? Is that a move? Is that a better move? I'm not sure how that interaction works. You know, dude, if that happens, like, no offense, if that happened and I'm on that team, it's like fucking hell. How are we gonna win this game? How are we gonna win this game?
Oh my god.
But we did win the Kindred games.
You did, but
And it was good enough to ban. So.
Oh yeah, that was the M. Night Shyamalan ban. Where what is it? It's like, okay, holy shit, what are they gonna ban? They're gonna ban Kindred.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I mean, I was really funny. We were thinking they were gonna leave it up, and we were like, we'll first pick it. They won't expect it.
Oh. Also, another thing is, I'm super curious on this solo. You guys kept first picking Jarvan into Rek'Sai, and I thought Acadian looked really uncomfortable on Jarvan, and
I agree,
he looked really comfortable.
Rek'Sai, it's one of his best.
He looked really comfortable on Rek'Sai, and Jarvan into Rek'Sai, you don't win early, and then you don't win like when Rek'Sai around like level 6 timing too. Jarvan's a better team fighter. You usually have to play away from the Rek'Sai, and you gank the other lanes that Rek'Sai isn't on. Why'd you guys keep picking Jarvan, and why did Rush keep playing to the same side as the Rek'Sai?
I can't really speak for pathing necessarily, but I will say that I thought Rush outpathed him in almost all the Jarvan versus Rek'Sai games. I remember Rush being up a lot of CS in at least 2 of the games, but I don't remember exactly. But as for like picking the matchup, we as a team just thought that picking Jarvan was the best way to win for us. And we didn't think that Jarvan was, the reason we were losing, and we didn't think that Rek'Sai was the reason they were winning either. And we were comfortable playing that matchup. So yeah, I mean that was just what we thought would be the best course to win, and maybe we could have changed things up, but we thought in Game 4 we changed up enough that it wasn't like a draft problem that we were losing. It was just they were playing better than us.
Because the big problem for me in this series was, if you ask me before the series which team's the better team fighting team, I'm picking TSM, obviously. And so because in a bunch of these games you were down early, they always had the leads, they were getting the early kills. It's like, it was an uphill challenge the whole way. Like, you'd have had to find some perfect fights at those dragons. Like, and instead, it's not all of them were even terrible. It's just like, they were already ahead. And it's like, by the time you come in, what are you going to do? I don't even know what you do at that point.
Well, not only were they ahead in some of those cases, and a lot of those games, like Game 2 and Game 3, they had a lot of early prio in all their lanes. And we would kind of just like walk in while they're already set up, and it's just really difficult to take back control when they're already there and they have lanes pushed out and they have control, then you're just pretty much gambling on you being able to like massively outplay the enemy team, which versus them is just like not very realistic. So yeah, they punished us hard for making those type of mistakes.
I also thought Acadian is someone that recently had a lot of upspurt, and he's shown a lot of finesse on champions like Rek'Sai, champions like Sejuani, and making him uncomfortable was one of the ways that you guys can win, and him not getting pressured off of the pick that he was comfortable on was a really weird choice in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the Game 2 and Game 3, Game 2 we thought we lost purely because we made too many early game mistakes. Because in that game a lot of like those Baron skirmishes were very close.
Yeah.
And we were down like 4 or 5k at that point, and kind of forced to be in those situations. And we thought that if we just didn't make those kind of mistakes early, we would have been closer in gold. I mean, Apollo got first tower that game basically for free. So the laning was going well. We just needed to not die so much early. So Game 3, we decided we want to do like a very similar type of draft, do the Jarvan versus Rek'Sai and let them have Lissandra. And then Game 4 is when we realized that we had to change something because they were winning with the way we were doing things. And instead of banning Rek'Sai, we decided Lissandra was like more of the reason they were able to do things early game. And we needed to like get Lissandra out of the game because we thought that combination was better than just... Because if we banned Rek'Sai, if they just picked Nocturne, I mean, how different is really that going to be? Sure, there's like less like level 4, level 3 pressure, but at level 6, it's going to be like twice as hard to live. from their roams and their collapses than it would be versus Rexa anyways.
Right.
So that was our thought process.
In fitting with your alias, people do kind of notice that in your team, sometimes you are just on your own. Like, you don't get all the jungle pressure all the time. In this series, it must have been pretty hard, right? Because Broken Blade was doing pretty well in lane, it looked like.
He was doing okay. I think I played pretty poorly game 3. I was pretty unfamiliar with playing Aatrox in the Hecarim, so I felt like I felt like how Hanser must have felt versus Licorice in the qualifiers. But yeah, I mean, he played really well game 3, and I did not expect Hecarim to like be so strong in some of the times he was. So I died there and kind of let him have a pretty good early lead. But I thought game 1 or all the other games, I played like a lot better in lane, and the laning phase was going really well. But he did. I mean, he team fought well. I mean, he did what he had to do. And I mean, he played a good series. He did his job for sure.
Thorin, what did you think on Solo's performance?
Right. What I do is I just admit all my biases, mate. So, like, I think, like, Aatrox in team fights is absolutely fucking broken as fuck. Like, if you just survive to team fights, it's pathetic. Like, basically, what's mad is if I had an enemy team, I would just be telling them, like, let's just CC all the Aatrox. Because if that's just allowed to walk around team fights, it just kills everyone, doesn't it? Then also you've got the other factor that I hate fucking Zoe. I think that's a broken-ass champion. So, if either of these two champions are in team fights going off, I don't go, like, oh, what a fucking amazing player this guy is. I'm like, well done. You basically like can drive a Ferrari at the speed limit. Like, you know, no offense. There you go.
So
I agree though. Here's the thing. The thing with the Aatrox is to lane with it can be tricky sometimes. That's why I actually think, for example, for Viper, it's a great picking because it's someone who almost fits his strengths and his weaknesses, you know. But I thought Solo did pretty well. But the problem is this, Loco, is when you do pretty well in a series your team comprehensively loses, it's like it's not really the same as doing well in a win. You know, it's kind of like you just get the consolation prize for that, and you just you don't look the worst out of some other people who are making mistakes elsewhere. You know, so it's like I'll give credit for that. He's one of the better players for their team, certainly, but also it's not the same as if he'd been in a position to win the game and he'd like carried all these team fights and stuff. You know,
I like to look at it as being like I would describe it as I played well enough to win, but not well enough to not lose.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it was all your fault, mate. Like, you performed above expectations, I think, for the series.
I think, for me personally, having coached Solo and watched him play for a while, I thought it was one of the best series you played. Like, not trying to fluff you because you're on the show, but usually you're on tanks, you're very, like, on a, like... I remember you like during the Maokai Nautilus era when I coached you, and then also on CG you took backseat a lot, and then this time like you were given priority picks like Aatrox, you were given Akali, and you did a lot more with it than I actually thought you would. I thought it was kind of dangerous for them to put so much X in your basket, but you actually did more than what I expected of you.
Aw. Can we get some hearts in the chat for that? That's the nicest thing Loco's ever said to me.
The problem is you have to realise, it's like I said before, Loco just like, as soon as a player comes through the door, he's like, oh, yes, sir. Can I shine your shoes, sir? Would you like some hot coffee?
Oh, my God, no.
Would you like whipped cream on that? It's like,
what the hell? I didn't do that with Gilius. I didn't do that with Perks. I didn't do that when we had players.
Because you didn't know him and you don't respect him. Like, with Froggen, you literally... It's not how two-faced you are.
I argued with Froggen
on everything.
No, I argued with Froggen on the show.
And every time you made a good point,
I remember that show.
The second...
You were fucking flaming me. You were flaming me for arguing with Froggen on the show.
The second he was out of the room, you went right back to flaming him again, and then you had to apologize 7 times during the split and all the interviews.
You literally told me what I said. I shouldn't have argued with Froggen on the show because he knows more about mid lane than me. You literally told me that, Thorin. Those are words that came out of your mouth. You literally said, "Why the fuck are you arguing with Froggen? He knows more about mid lane than you." I did not fucking suck up to him. What is your point? What is your point?
Every time he argued back, you just like, oh yeah, I guess. So that's why I said
no. I stood. I stood my.
Get it. No, go back. But you know what? The fans can decide this. Go watch the VOD. And what I want you to do is every time Loco battles Froggen, he makes a point. Froggen counters the point. This is the question: does Loco then stand his ground, make a great point, and move on to the next thing, or does he concede the point? Sometimes even go, well, yeah, maybe I guess I didn't think of it that way, and then like let it go to the next topic. You could be the judge of this, fans.
So,
because what I would say happened is, and by the way, just to make a quick point, I didn't say that as in you shouldn't argue with Froggen. My point was you picked the wrong battleground to do it on, dude. If you'd have kept it all like macro team concepts, you could have probably bodied him. Like, you actually could have made a lot of the points that you probably wanted to make. You just made the mistake of getting lured into literally having debates about how the mid laner plays. Like, that ain't a good look. You don't know how the mid laner plays.
So
You're still telling Phoenix doing the right thing.
I gave Froggen space on the ones. What is it? I actually agreed with him on after arguing with him. He changed my opinion on some of them, but on some of his points, I thought was fucking ridiculous. Where he said, "No, I don't think I'm worse than this player that's world class because I never played him and I never lost to him." I thought those points were fucking ridiculous. And what could I say at that point? Like, Froggen, you're stupid. Like this.
You could be no. You could be a man and just say, "I totally disagree. I actually think you're not one of the best players in that way." And you know what? You're entitled to your opinion, but I actually think you're the 7th best mid laner in the mid.
So no, I said you're entitled to your own opinion, and I said I disagree. Maybe I wasn't as argumentative as you, but I stood my ground.
You don't have to be argumentative, mate. You don't have to be argumentative.
All right, I think we're getting distracted. Any other things you want to talk about regarding TSM versus Echo Fox?
Well, you're the one who's saying we're getting distracted, so you better have a topic tomorrow. Go on then. What do you want to talk about then?
All right, so for TSM versus Echo Fox, and in general for Broken Blade, he got 3rd in All Pro voting. What's you guys' overall take on Broken Blade?
That's corrupt as fuck, but whatever.
That was,
that's some bullshit.
He's a good player, so I don't want to take anything away from him. But I thought Hanser got straight up robbed from being on one of the pro teams. I thought he should have been probably 2nd. I voted him 2nd, I think.
I'll say this, right? I've said this a bunch of times and no one seems to get my point. I don't know a single expert or commentator or top pro who says Golden Guardians has like a really strong overall team, like, you know, great at team fighting, or like they're like not bad in late game team fights, although I made this point in the Loco. They don't tend to engage them very well. Normally, like, you have to engage into them and then they win the counter engage. Then if they had early game, they never ever won the game early. They still tend to draw out, like, as a team, most people, I think, would acknowledge they have a lot of flaws. Like, Ole inted a lot, definitely wasn't a very good at carrying team fights, Contract inted sometimes. Even though I give him credit, sometimes he also pulled off some ganks. So here's the question. Who was winning the games? Who was winning these games?
The enemy team inting into Golden Guardians. The enemy team inting into Golden Guardians for no reason. A lot of times it was enemy team inting, but I know what you mean. Yeah, it was Frog and Hanser carrying a lot of times.
I just mean as in, they literally, they want you to engage on them. I don't mean that you're literally always inting, but my point is, it was clearly the solo laners, right? So how can anyone at the end of the split, understanding the solo laners carried this team, then be like, I think they're just sort of the 5th best in the LCS. It's like, that doesn't add up. That math doesn't work. Like, how can Broken Blade be that good if you're also going to get it to the other members of the TSM?
So here's the, go ahead, Colin, and then I'll go.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the voting for All Pro and like MVP to a certain extent, I mean, it just all depends a lot about like how good your team is. And you saw that in 14 out of 15 All Pro players are from the top 3 teams, with Santorin being the only one in it, and he probably should have been a little bit higher up on that ballot.
Sure.
But it's just really tough to look good when your team is losing sometimes. And even though Golden Guardians made playoffs and they had a decent record, when you lose 5 more games than the other team, then yeah, you're gonna look worse 5 more times than the other guy did.
I'll go the other way on that though. That's exactly why I wouldn't have Broken Blade in the top 3, because you know what? By the end of the split, they won a lot of games in TSM and they beat the top teams every time. He didn't look that great in their wins. You know, he had a couple of good games. He had some okay games. He had moments in games. He looked good. It's not. Put it this way: who would ever have said like he's a potential MVP candidate? Nobody, right? 0 people in the whole league. Like, he actually was overrated in their wins.
So, here's like the M. Night Shyamalan twist. I put Broken Blade as 3rd.
You probably put Licorice first, right?
Oh, don't worry, Loco just picked the top 3 teams.
And then
Impact second? Yeah, Impact 2nd. Okay, so I'll go for Broken Blade 3rd. I think Licorice Impact 1 is super easily defendable, and I think the Broken Blade 3rd is the one where it needs explanation. So for me, if the season ended like 2 weeks earlier, I actually wouldn't have put Broken Blade 3rd, and I probably would have put Hanser 3rd, or maybe even Viper, but probably Hanser. So I was actually pretty down on Broken Blade throughout the whole season. I thought Viper was better than Broken Blade for a majority of the season. Broken Blade has so much resource in terms of jungle proximity and how much Acadian came up top, and also how much counter picks he got and how much carry picks he got. Broken Blade was definitely someone that was put in a position to succeed. And when later on in the season later on in the season he's actually able to succeed on champions like Vladimir that wasn't his normal forte, and melee carries like that setup with Sejuani. I started to watch his game more in detail and what he was able to accomplish and try to think of the context behind it. A lot of rookie player, I know Broken Blade isn't a rookie, but in a lot of sense, like he is a
context he is. Yeah,
he's a rookie coming onto a super hype team in TSM and with a lot of pressure to succeed and to be a star carry on TSM. And I think to be able to accomplish that, it takes a lot of mental fortitude, especially when throughout the season it was up and down. And that light bulb finally clicking in the end and him being able to be a functional side lane star carry was not an easy feat to accomplish. I think what Haunter had to accomplish on Golden Guardians probably easier than what Broken Blade had to accomplish.
Excuse me, what?
What?
Who do you think's better, Froggen or Bjergsen?
Bjergsen.
Who's better, Sven or Deathly?
Sven.
Who's better, Smoothie or Ole?
Smoothie, what's your point?
Who's better, Cadian or Contracts?
I mean, I think
that one's arguable, but what I'm saying is the Haunter's role wasn't as high pressure and wasn't as high resource heavy.
Just explain that everyone. You know what? You take this one. You just fuck off, mate.
You don't think Broken Blade? You don't think what Broken Blade had to do on top? You don't think what Broken Blade had to do on TSM as like a star point carry was hard to do?
I think it's a lot easier to do that with fucking Bjergsen in the mid lane and a jungler that plays proactively and a spot lane that plays super safe, as opposed to Hotz that literally
Acadian was not a great jungler for Broken Blade earlier in the season. A lot of times,
Contracts is dynamite, isn't he? Yeah, my bad. We're comparing two players, Loco. That's what you're not realizing. You're not making the case for one player. You're making a case for one player over another player.
I'm making the case that the context for Broken Blade having to perform on TSM and the kind of role that he was put in with Acadian was not easy to do at all.
And yet, fans, you know what? I'm just going to go with the fans on this one. I don't care about convincing you, mate. It's impossible to convince you. Fans, take the VOD, rewind it about 5 minutes, and listen to what he said before he explained all the stuff. He was getting the counter picks, he had jungle attention, he gives all these things off that, right? Does Hotzer get all those?
No, and you're expected less out of you if you're doing that. If you don't get as much resource, you're expected less. You're not put in a difficult position.
Am I taking crazy pills here, mate? I don't understand what his point is, genuinely.
I agree, and I think the biggest thing to look at is if you put Haunter on TSM, would he be able to do the same or more than Broken Blade? And I think he would, because I think Haunter is just a better overall player. Maybe he is a little bit weaker, like mid to late game macro sense, but I think in terms of laning, and I think in terms of carry potential, I think Haunter has all those skills that Broken Blade has, and he was able to show that on an even weaker roster, and I think that's commendable for being voted to like an all-pro team. I think when almost your whole entire roster is all-pro, I think the bar should be higher than just I'm winning with them.
Exactly.
I think
there you go.
Okay, so to explain my point better, when you're getting more resource, right, and you're getting more of the things, there's a certain expectation that you have to do, and the difficulty of it is still high. If it was easy, right, then every team would just, let's counterpick top, and let's just gank top side. Then that player will carry no matter what. If it was that easy, then every team would do that, right? Just because you're getting the resource doesn't make it easy. And the combination of doing it for a team like TSM and a combination of coming in as a rookie player into LCS and doing that was not an easy feat at all. And the fact that
I see what you mean now, by the way. I actually do understand your point now, which is that your point is that if you don't get all the resources there, you're not expected to carry as much.
And it's a lot easier to just play independent tank than it is to play resource-heavy carry.
Depends who you're playing tank for.
What do you mean?
Who you play tank for?
You can play a resource, like, the difficulty level of that is much, much lower than it is to play a carry role. Like, to play a tank.
It depends. In this scenario, you have to play an even better tank than the other guy would. See what I'm saying?
What was the Golden Guardians expectation? I know for you it was make top 4, but I think for a lot of teams, like, if them making playoff was like amazing for them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Didn't you just make a hell of a case as to why Haunter would be like a top laner then? By what you just said.
No, my case is like Haunter's difficulty and like what he had to accomplish wasn't as high as what Broken Blade had to accomplish.
Do you not understand how hard it is to carry in a game where the other players are liabilities? Do you genuinely not understand that?
No, I understand that, but what I'm telling you is like Haunter isn't on a carry role majority of the time. Haunter is on either a tank role or a secondary carry role, where Broken Blade was put in the primary carry role where you are getting the most resources and making it the hardest.
Why do the first 4 weeks of the split not count for Broken Blade?
It counts for Broken Blade as much as it counts for Haunter. Both of them were Garbo.
Yeah, and you know what? For the first 4 weeks, same logic. I'll spin it back on you. First 4 weeks, counter picks, jungle attention, and he's losing all the games. He's just doing like okay in lane. He's doing weird things that disconnect from the team. That doesn't count against him because no one of those people.
It counts exactly.
And then at the end, you go, oh, but you beat these teams, brilliant.
It's
the whole split.
Yes.
MVP of the split.
It counts exactly that much for Broken Blade, and it counts for Haunter also. What was Haunter playing in the first 4 weeks? He was playing counter.
No.
Wait, Thorin. Wait, Thorin. Then let me finish. What was he playing? No, Thorin. Then what was he playing? What was he playing in the first 4 weeks?
Is this guy for real? He's not even asking you a rhetorical question.
I think regardless.
No, I'm asking you the question.
Tanks or carries.
Yeah.
I think regardless of what Haunter played, tanks or carries the first, or like throughout the split, if you look at his laning stats in the first 15 minutes. This guy is head of the league in almost everything, right? So if he's playing tanks and he has like less of a carry role or able to or have to do something, it's even more impressive that he's able to do something that has low pressure like a tank champion and still have insane laning stats. And then when he does play carries, he does the same things. I think across the board, like Haunter just played like really, really well into everybody. Like the only game I can remember him doing poorly on was the Someday Riven game where he kind of inted and got carried. But I mean, besides that, I thought he played really, really well and his laning stat shows it. And it's just kind of the consequence of not being on the winning team or like the popular team where you don't get as much credibility because you're 5 wins less or your team's not dominating people in 30 minutes.
All right, so let's rewind.
That's the maddest part. You know what? I have a better memory than you, Loco.
Okay, so then tell me.
In the first part, right? First of all, don't keep doing that way. You keep asking me questions. Tell me not.
You asked me a question regarding who's better, Smoothie or Ole.
You know what? The fans can decide again. I'm not going to do this. Okay. I have to either talk or I don't.
All right.
One or the other.
You go on first, and then actually answer me the question. What champion was Haunter playing in the first 4 games?
You know what, mate, Loco? I actually feel minorly bad here, mate, because if I make my points, people are going to flame the fuck out of you already.
Make your point, and let them flame, because I don't think it's correct.
Right, okay, so first of all, again, fans, go back in the episodes, go to the beginning of the split, and what you do is watch the first episodes when we talk about Golden Guardians. Who does Locodoco say is the best player on Golden Guardians at the time? Haunter. So this bum-ass motherfucker who now makes out like, because Golden Guardians went 0-4, Haunter went 0-4. No, he's one player in the game, mate, and you know what? He was the best player on the team. Then, only about middle of the split do you start to acknowledge that Froggen's the better player. So that means you're giving the first half of the split all to Haunter, who you acknowledge is playing tank some of the time, isn't getting jungle attention, isn't getting counter picks. And yet, as Solo just said here, he is having some of the best stats. He's playing really well. He's playing well even in games he's lost. That's before they even go on the winning streak. So in your world, when Broken Blade's team wins, he gets loads of credit. When his team loses, it's not that bad. When Haunter's team loses, that's Haunter's fault, isn't it? Then when Haunter's team starts winning, at the end, it's like, oh, well, you didn't have a harder job to do, carrying definitely all the and inty old fucking contracts there. I don't know what point you're trying to make, mate. It's like, you keep... What you have to do when you make a point, right? I might be wrong about a lot of stuff. You got to be consistent with the logic, though. Like, if you set up logic for one person, it has to apply the same to the other person.
That's where you're factually wrong. You're telling me Haunter played tanks in the earlier 4 weeks and he didn't get jungle attention or counter picks? That's factually wrong. That's factually wrong.
I quit the show, Loco. This is the end of the show.
Why? Why is that end of the show? Because that's factually wrong. That's not what he did. He picked carries in the earlier season, in the earlier weeks of Golden Guardians.
Really well in lane. I mean, he did really well overall. His team was just worse. I don't think if you put Broken Blade on, I think if you put Broken Blade on Golden Guardians wouldn't have been.
I think this might actually be the end of this show, mate. Like, I can't stay up till 8 a.m. in China, and then if you just doing stuff like that, like, what's the point?
Wait,
we're not even discussing anything now. You're just trying to get me to agree with you.
No, I'm not trying to get you to agree with me. You're telling me Haunter was not playing carries, and he was playing tanks, and he wasn't getting counter picks, right? That's what you're saying. Yes or no?
Right, yes, yeah, look, I said he plays tanks every single game. I'm about to quit this call, by the way. He just plays tanks every game. He's never played a carry. I definitely didn't earlier in the game. I definitely didn't earlier on say that he played carries at all, did I? Never said that, did I, Solo? Why would I say that? Because Loco doesn't want me to. As usual, what Loco does is, the fact he would dare say he's factual, by the way, all he does is pick the fact he likes.
No,
so
I'm not
there. Because I dared to say that Haunter ever played tanks. It's like, now all he ever plays is tanks. Oh, well, you win, Loco. There you go. If you ever let me make a point, I don't know if you'll ever win. So keep going.
You literally told me, what is it? I'm not bashing Broken Blade for his first 4 games, while I'm bashing Haunter for his first 4 games. And then when we're comparing the first 4 games, Haunter's playing stuff like Rise, Haunter's playing stuff like Jace, and Haunter's ulting the entire team into mid lane. I don't get why we're not taking...
Oh, right. Wait a second. Was Haunter ulting the whole team in the mid lane in all the games? Why would you say that, Loco? That's factually incorrect. See what it's like to be an arsehole. You just ruined the discussion. You know what? When I make Flame, Loco, it's to be funny. Like, when I actually make a point, it's to make a point. You get caught between the two, mate.
But we were literally talking about the first 4 games, and you were telling me, like, Haunter's playing tanks, he's not getting counter picks, he's not getting jungle attention.
You know what? I've figured the secret out now, Loco, is since I'm not in the mood, since, as I say, it's 8 in the morning in fucking China when I've just done a tournament, since I'm not in the mood, I'll let the fans decide. If they think I lost, there we go. They can have this one, mate. I think what will happen, by the way, is people will actually see that you were just completely all over the place with your argument. So I'll leave it to them.
I think I had
to resolve.
Okay. Well, I think I had to be all over with my argument because I would argue something, I would make my point, and then it would go completely array where I would say, okay, Haunter was also playing carries, and then you're telling me, what do you mean he was playing carries earlier in the season? He wasn't playing carries. And then he literally was playing stuff like Rice. He literally was playing stuff like Jace.
Right, so let me just check here. Solo, I'll ask you. I think you were here. Right, Solo, you were here. You were listening. I'm not asking you to take sides. But did Loco not just say that Haunter was playing tanks? And then he said earlier on that Haunter didn't do as much as Broken Blade because he didn't play carries and didn't have the attention.
I mean, I think they both played their fair share of tanks and carries, but I think it's pretty clear that
I don't really know what the point was. But okay, keep going.
I think Broken Blade clearly got more resources, right, overall, over the whole split, like the whole body of work. I think Broken Blade got more resources from jungler and his team and counterpick. I think Haunter, they both kind of played the same amount of like tanks and carries. I think that's kind of a wash. But I think like overall the laning phase stats, first 15 minutes, Haunter is like clearly ahead of everyone, even Licorice. I think you can argue maybe Haunter has like a little bit weaker like macro game later on because he does kind of sit in side lane a little bit too much all game and he doesn't really contribute. Like he's okay in team fights, but he's not like spectacular. But I think that Haunter had like a much harder team to kind of carry, and just by doing all the things he's done, I think he deserved to be 3rd spot at the least. I thought he should have been 2nd because Impact slumped near the end. And I think Broken Blade, as good as he is and how much he's grown, I don't think he is a more valuable player than Haunter. That's just my opinion. So did you vote Ole for MVP?
No, I voted you.
Do you think Bjergsen actually has a chance to win MVP?
I think Bjergsen's gonna win MVP because
really.
MVP.
They're all going to do what Locodoco just did and ignore all the weeks early on where Core JJ was like the best player, and then they're going to go, but at the end, and blah blah, and then they.
Well, even
I know
Core JJ was the best player on TL. When they were losing.
I actually think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think Bjergsen's going to win on recency bias because Bjergsen performed well towards the end of the split, and Core JJ didn't play well towards the end of it. We can have a separate discussion regarding who should win, but I think Bjergsen will win. Like likelihood of winning, I think it would be Bjergsen.
Right, okay, go on then, Loco. This is your turn to look stupid, mate. How did Core JJ play badly towards the end of the split? Only facts, please. I don't want any editorialization, just facts.
I'm not telling you that Core JJ played bad. I'm telling you who's more likely to win.
Wait a minute.
Oh, Thorin's left the call. I will say, though, that I don't think Core JJ necessarily played bad the last 2 weeks. Like, I thought he did exactly what he's been doing the whole entire time, but someone captioned that.
All right.
That's the next emo.
Oh
right?
my god. We'll wait for Thorin, and then I'll remake my point again. But my point is, if someone asks me who's more likely to win, I think Bjergsen is way more likely to win for TSM going off on the end of the split and TL losing games towards the end of the split. Like, just towards the storyline and for the general public, I think they're going to think Bjergsen did better, and Bjergsen is the one that's going to win.
Yeah, I'm thinking that I wouldn't be surprised, but it would be a little bit disappointing because I think that happens a lot where if you just kind of show up near the end, even if the first 2 or 3 weeks were poor, you get a lot of the benefit of the doubt.
All right, Thorin, are you here?
Good to have you back.
don't think I can do better. I'm literally behind a massive firewall, aren't I?
Okay.
So
wait,
Look,
Thorin,
this is the
did you know?
question.
Wait, okay. Or let me tell you what I understood the question as and what I answered. I understood it as who's more likely to win MVP, and I think who's more likely to win MVP is Bjergsen, because TSM won almost all their games towards the end of the split, where TL lost almost all their games due to recency bias
So
and
why
due
did
to
you say CoreJJ did badly at the end of the split?
I did badly as in the team loss. Okay, maybe I worded it badly, but I think Bjergsen is the most likely candidate to win MVP.
Listen, I agree with that. I just said that myself. The thing I don't understand is I agree with Solo. Like, if I'm picking players who did badly in those Team Liquid loss, I'm not picking CoreJJ.
You're picking Xmithy, you're picking Impact.
Of course.
Yeah.
Some of those guys literally inted some kills and stuff. Like, at that point in time, I don't know. And also remember, because they tried to show off their versatility, they went away from their strengths. Like, how's CoreJJ supposed to do all that sick late game shot calling when they're never late game? You know?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of their losses had nothing to do with bot lane. And I mean, I get they're trying stuff, and I think a lot of it too is after they had lost versus even like TSM and FlyQuest, and they had 2 losses. I think it's hard for a team who's already secured first place with so much to play to kind of still have that edge to want to, you know, like smash their competition. Like once you're not going for the undefeated split, it's kind of just like when can playoffs finally start, and you're just kind of coasting. And I think they kind of ran into that slump of just kind of being bored with the rest of the LCS.
Like, I'll also give you another reason, which is actually a good reason, to be fair, as to why Bjergsen probably will win. I actually do personally think for an award like that, you shouldn't actually consider intangibles like shot calling, because nobody can actually know exactly what the shot calling was. Like, we hear the stories, we see the mic check and that, but like, we can't really know. So as a result, just as a player, it's going to be a lot harder as an individual player, as a support to win than a carry mid laner.
What's MVP?
No.
What's
Like,
MVP to you? What is it? The MVP award?
Well,
What's the
this
definition
is one
for
thing
it?
that tilts the fuck out of me, Loco, is because I'll give you an example of someone who does this. Papa Smithy, this is exactly what he did this split. So Papa Smithy's logic, right, is that Tarzan is not allowed to win the LCK MVP because his team's too good.
LCK MVP is different, no, because of the point stuff.
No,
Like,
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about who he would have picked. I'm not talking about the MVP voting, like the where you win by game player of the game awards. I mean, that's the difference between me and him. In my opinion, like I'll tell you the simplest example, right? I don't care how you want to torture the word valuable. If you're the best player in the world, you are by definition the most valuable player in the world. So Tarzan is the most valuable player of the LCK because he is the best player in the world, right? Yes, Deft is more important to Kingzone because they are bad. That doesn't make Deft more valuable as a player. That makes him more valuable to Kingzone. Now, is the award called Most Valuable Player to your team? It was never called that. It was called the Most Valuable Player of the LCS. So that means you are the most valuable player in the whole LCS. You don't get punished for having bad teammates if you're the best player. That doesn't make any sense, because otherwise the award every season should go to someone in like the 3rd or 4th team who probably shouldn't have his team at the top, but played so well and he had a couple of bad teammates. So actually, in this season, okay, that would fit Bjergsen. The problem with that is, Loco.
That would be Santorin, really.
Yeah,
Santorin, if it was like that,
Santorin.
Santorin would MVP.
So wait, Thorin, before you finish,
No, listen. One last thing to say though. But by the same logic, Bjergsen should never have won a past MVP. You see what I'm saying?
but what is it? MVP is often that when Arrow won, when Rush won, I think they won because they were the most valuable player to their team, and because it's MVP.
My problem is, I think, yeah, okay, right, whatever. Go on.
All right, I'm sorry.
It can't keep happening.
All right. Well, okay. Do you want to make your point? To make your point, or I'll make mine.
I've never figured out how to make my point without you making your point. So you know what? I've gone back. You know what we were going to do at the beginning of the episode? You just talk for 20 minutes, look, and I'll just say stuff after that. There you go.
All right, Thorin, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I think because it's called MVP and not called the Best Player Award, what you're describing is the Best Player Award, and because it's called MVP, I think a lot of times the most valuable player to their team wins, more so than the best player.
That's brilliant. If I can just decide the definition of the words, I win as well. Right,
I mean, it's going to be
mean?
a combination of both, I think. I mean, yeah, it is the best player in the league, but also like who is contributing the most to their team.
Here's a question for you. What about this? If you were starting a team tomorrow, which would you pick, CoreJJ or Bjergsen?
Bjergsen, easy.
Just, I mean, just
Are you
for the
real?
import rules, right?
I would.
I mean,
You would take Core
You know
JJ?
what? Here's why.
In NA?
'Cause this is how a draft would work. Okay, right, we're picking all of our players, right?
Wait,
So based on this split, the reason I would take Core JJ first. Are you ready? This is going to explain why he's the most valuable. It's because if I take Core JJ first, right, you take Bjergsen, yeah? And let's say solo in this same draft, maybe he picks double lift, right?
Yeah.
Here's how I've won the draft already. Because I just take Jensen as my mid laner, and then you take who is your support eventually? You'll never get a support as good. I can get a mid laner almost as good. You can't get a support as good. So I would actually have the better franchise. So my point I've made there is, by definition, that makes Core JJ the most valuable player because he is of more value than the other players. The award, you just said it there, you were wrong. The award was never called most valuable player to his team. It is the most valuable player of the LCS.
So Thorin, when you asked me the question, who would you start your team with, Bjergsen or Core JJ? And you're not giving me context regarding, okay, after what is it?
Okay,
who would you start the draft with?
This point, though.
So for that one, like I think it's debatable what the jump between Core JJ to Zeyzal is from Bjergsen to Jensen, because I think it's arguable that the Bjergsen Jensen jump is smaller than the Core JJ, or the Bjergsen Jensen jump is similar to the Core JJ Zeyzal jump.
I don't know about that. I mean, Core JJ is
By the way,
the best
just
support,
as an
right?
aside,
Even above
so,
Zeyzal.
I don't know how many episodes you've watched, but Loco is also one of those people who like thinks every Cloud9 player is like the second best player in the whole league. You know, he's one of those people. So
I think Zeyzal is exceptional. I think Zeyzal is fucking exceptional.
And so sneaky as well, right? He's really amazing as well.
No, I never said that. I think Zeyzal is exceptional though.
I mean, he is very good. I don't want to undervalue that, but I don't know Core JJ very well, and I don't know the dynamic within Team Liquid, but it seems to me that he is able to take them to a whole other level, especially when they get to international. And I don't think you could replace him with someone like Zeyzal and be able to get that same type of push. Whereas, as Thorin was saying, replacing Jensen and Bjergsen, which I do agree Bjergsen is a more complete player and a better leader, I think that gap is a lot smaller and easier to hide when it comes to playing like full LCS games.
Like, do you see the point I made about the LCK example, Loco?
What is it? If you have too much valuable players on your team, it's harder to look good, and sometimes you don't get credit.
By the logic of people like Papa Smithy, the dominant team can never have the MVP.
I don't think that's true.
I've just explained why.
I understood what Papa Smithy means, but I disagree with that logic. I get that's Papa Smithy's logic, yes, okay. But I disagree with that logic.
Because that's the point I'm making, is if by the logic you've used, right, should actually make people like Arrow win. Because what you do is you find the best player on the worst team who's still relevant, right? So as you said, actually, Santorum would have been a shout for that.
But that's what I'm saying, though, is not... I don't get to determine the definition of what MVP is. I'm not, going to everyone like that has like a voting ballot and telling them, this is the MVP, ballot, this is what it means to be an MVP. These are the definition. It means you're the most valuable to your team. It means if you were replaced with an average player, your team would drop the most places. Like, that's not, what I'm telling them. I'm telling you, like, everyone has like a different definition of it, right?
I'm aware
and if the majority of the...
I told you that's how they all think. I know that, Loco. And by the way, I've never said Bjergsen can't be the MVP. I don't think it's the end of the world. It's a close race.
Thorin, at a certain point, let's say like 80%, 70% of the voters are voting that way, and that's the criteria that the voters are voting by, then that's the criteria, that becomes what the criteria for the award.
Terrible criteria, personally. But like I say, okay, let's go the other way. How could Core JJ have possibly won while he's on Team Liquid?
I actually think there's a good argument for Core JJ. I'm not telling you like Core JJ or Bjergsen is winning. I'm
asking what would he have had to do? Because listen, think about the logic that you guys have set up. This is one thing you guys do, and this is a flaw in logical thinking, is you don't only look at one side of the application, yeah? You apply it to everyone. So that's why I give you the Tarzan example. I said it's impossible to be MVP if you're on the best team. Because by this logic, right, the reason Core JJ can't win MVP is because of everything that Bjergsen did and nothing that Core JJ did. If he could play as identically and Bjergsen does nothing, he wins the MVP, yeah? So he's the most valuable player. But because Bjergsen doesn't have good enough teammates, he can't be the MVP. That's the logic. That is what is being applied.
That is what's being applied by
his fault that Reggie's a garbage GM. Well, that's why he doesn't win MVP.
That's not
MVP of this split. If the assist goes to Reginald for being so bad that Bjergsen looked way better. There we go. That's what it was.
That's not my argument for MVP. What my point to this whole MVP discussion is, if majority of the voters are voting in a certain way and that becomes their criteria and that becomes what the award actually is, then that actually just becomes the criteria for the award, and it's really like your vote is always swinging the other way because you're not voting the same way the other people are. And yeah, I actually do think there is some logic in that. When rest of your teammates are good, it is extremely hard to stand out. And like, it's humans voting, where Bjergsen can stand out because there are lesser players on his team, and a lot of times he is carrying. So yes, he is going to get more of the credit. That's just like naturally how it is. Like, that's just naturally how it is. When you have lesser players and you shine more.
Question for you.
Okay.
So Faker should never have won any MVPs.
So Faker should win MVPs, and I'm not even arguing for that. I'm telling you, like, the phenomenon that's going on. I don't want this to be like an echo chamber. I'm trying to make sure this isn't an echo chamber. I'm telling you, like, how other people are voting and how other people are looking at MVPs, instead of being like, I agree with that logic. I agree with that logic. Yes, I still agree with your logic, but I'm telling you, there's different avenues that people are voting, and like, why I think certain people are going to win.
So wait a minute. You just spent 20 minutes explaining to me, right, fans, pause the VOD again, go back to the beginning of the discussion, look at because I said the first thing in this discussion. Look at what I said at the beginning of the discussion. Loco essentially just spent 20 minutes telling me what other people think of the MVP in a show where we give our opinions.
Well, no, I'm telling you who I thought was more likely to win MVP due to how other people are voting.
So we weren't even discussing who the MVP is.
Okay.
I think. Do you think Corjay is MVP? I think you voted for him, right?
So Mark Z.
100% voted.
No. I'll say this. 100%. Mark Z said he can't talk about his MVP vote, and I did not read my things in too detail, so I'm pretty sure people that voted can't talk about who they voted for yet.
I think you have to wait until it gets... No, but it gets released once the votes are done.
So I can't release...
They bring out a PDF that you can see.
Oh, yeah.
But he probably doesn't want to spoil it,
Mark Z said he's not supposed to talk about it, and by the same virtue, because I also voted, I think I'm not supposed to talk about it either.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I forgot that All Pro got released on who voted for what.
You know, you should have told us that at the beginning, Loco. Then we wouldn't have had that debate, would we?
Dude, you got mad at me for interrupting, so I didn't want to interrupt, and I wanted to let you finish.
Right. So you're the little kid who's like, son, why don't you put this away? Oh, okay, I'll put everything away then. Just chuck everything in a bin. Like, no, brilliant, yeah, great, Loco, great hosting.
All right.
You can bookmark this, and then if a month from now Loco ended up voting for Bjergsen, we can flame him.
Here's the thing, mate. There was never any doubt that he was voting for Bjergsen.
That's true.
Like, Loco's problem is, this is what he can't do. I'll just tell people that Frog is my favourite player. Loco has to keep up the pretense. And, like, he'll even do this. He'll, like, slightly try to, like, argue against Bjergsen to seem fair when he so clearly wants it to be Bjergsen. It's like, just admit it. Own your biases.
What is it? I do think I have a bias for Bjergsen, and I do, like, say, like, I coached TSM before, I worked with Bjergsen before, so I personally have more experience with Bjergsen, and I'm going to be biased towards him. Like, I never make that unclear. Like, I do
realize, though, logically, also what you've just done doesn't make any sense. Like, if you're not allowed to talk about who you voted for, why were you ever giving any comment on any of the shit we were just talking about in the context of who should win?
Because, what is it? I'm not allowed to say who I'm voting for, so I said who I think
so you said everything else?
Yeah, I said other parts that I can talk about, like who I think is more likely to win.
I can't say what the answer is, but 2 and 2 equals... I'll leave it to you guys. It's like, shut the fuck up, man. Come on. What you should have done there is said at the beginning, I can't tell you guys, so I can't give my opinion. And just ask me and him.
Sure. I'll do that next time. Next time I can't talk about something.
Well, I mean, logically, that would be all the time, mate. But, my bad. You meant officially you couldn't talk about it. Right, yeah.
All right. Anyways, do you want to move on to the TSMC9 series?
Right.
No. I think TSM C9 series is extremely hype, way more so than FlyQuest TL. And the points that Andy made regarding TL being one-dimensional, which is a point I made so many times before, I do think the weight of the TSM C9 series has much more weight to it, and I'm much more interested to see who wins that, and I think that team will beat TL. So If C9 wins, I'm a little worried because C9 has a huge mental block versus TL. But I want to keep the discussion just to TSM C9 for now. For me, I'm leaning way more towards C9 than I am towards TSM for that series.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
We good?
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, I agree. I think C9, especially being able to see kind of their priorities in the draft a week before, is a really good advantage. And I think C9 is just like a really complete team. I think that Svenskeren is having a tremendous split, and I think he's going to be like one of the big difference makers. I think Acadian is a good jungler, but I don't think he's anywhere near the tier of Svenskeren. And I think he'll be able to take over the series and really affect top lane specifically. I think Licorice plays like the same kind of style, or Broken Blade plays the same type of style as Licorice, but almost to like a slightly lesser degree. And I think that will C9 will be able to always like play through top and be able to get those kind of advantages. And then the rest of the team can just be like a rock, and those two can kind of be the difference makers.
I think TSM is good, but they're good in one or two ways, where they've shown a little bit of that in their match versus you guys, where bot lane did play well, but they weren't leaning into bot lane very, very heavily, and a lot of times they did lean back to top lane. So I think Cloud9 just has so many more ways to win. I think Cloud9 is way more balanced of a team. And where TSM is strong, I think Cloud9 is stronger. Where I think TSM is a top-oriented team around Broken Blade Acadian, C9 has the strongest top side in the league with Licorice and Svenskeren. So I think it's really going to be hard for TSM to win through that. And bottom hasn't been their primary way to win. Bottom hasn't been the side lane they lean towards the most. So I think it's really going to be hard for TSM.
Wait a minute. Let me just check something. I'm almost certain in all the episodes leading up to this, you said that TSM was going to win.
I flip-flop back and forth, but recently, like after watching the TSM Echo Fox game, ever since that game, I'm pretty sure I said Cloud9 is going to win.
Okay, because I actually had Cloud9 the whole time for basically the reasons you're outlining here, like better jungler, better top laner, overall, like even bot lane. It's probably fairly similar. I'll give Bjergsen the edge, but it doesn't really matter. Niski actually does his job pretty well. If you want to talk about, like, I don't know why Reginald would flame Team Liquid like that. Like, oh, they're one-dimensional. Well, you're like 1.5-dimensional. By the way, you're bragging.
They're the best one-dimensional team that...
Oh, exactly. Yeah, and by the way, they're one-dimension set fucking motherfucker to beat in a best of 5. And then Cloud9, by the same logic, well, they're like 4-dimensional, aren't they? Like, they're pretty sick.
TL, why Reggie flamed TL so hard, I think is TL is one-dimensional in a way that TSM was before. That late game scale until later and then team fight the other teams. And then when we got to the international stage with that kind of style, we were outpaced by teams that played early game much more faster than us and were much more proactive and could play side lanes. And TSM is now picking up that style where they are way more proactive early game. They aren't picking comps where they get outscaled. Or they are picking comps where they get outscaled and they have to be proactive early and build a lead early. So I actually do think Reggie has a legitimate point in flaming TL because TL is doing what the NA teams have done before and failed at Worlds.
That doesn't make sense. Like Solo just said there, that's only good flame if you can also beat that one dimension. Like if that one dimension beats you, you're actually flaming yourself. Indirectly.
TSM beat TL both times in the
in a best of one.
Yeah, I mean, but not when it matters.
But you're saying what if he shouldn't have
TSM can't even get to the point where they get to play them in playoffs. I mean, they've lost. They haven't even gotten to the finals. So I mean, I don't know.
Andy's flaming them for the exact reason you said, Thorin. Like TSM is beating TL in that way both times they met. So Andy probably feels really confident versus TL.
There's an example of hypocrisy, isn't it? If I go back in time, there's loads of splits where TSM was the best team, but they lost to the team in the Cloud9 beat us in the regular split. What he would have gone, yeah, I guess you're better. No, he'd go, what's the score in the finals? I have the trophy. Who cares? Like, and he's just what he's done right. By the way, he's done the right thing. If he's bantering, this is the difference. If he means what he says, I think it's kind of a bit of a whack point, like I say, because his team isn't better. If he's bantering, it's good banter because if you're the underdog, you've got to find some creative way to find a way to make fun of the top guy, haven't you? Like, you can't go, I'm better than you, because you know that's the one thing you can't say. So, like, on that angle, I will say this, by the way. Even though I assume now he was just joking, I actually thought it was so whack that Liquid 112 said they were going to pick TSM and then just pick FlyQuest.
Yeah.
So what was the point in just having a lie, are you? What was the point? Because remember, the whole context was everyone obviously said, like I did, whoever wins the FlyQuest GGS series, obviously that's the team you pick, right?
I thought that
and
was.
He was like, no, we will pick TSM. So you never were going to. You never were going to.
I thought that was a joke, but I also thought that was a really fucked up thing to joke about because it carries a lot of implications and like that was in bad taste for me too. Because if you're gonna pick them, then pick them. If you're not gonna pick them, don't say anything about it. When he said that, he should have picked them. If he wasn't gonna pick them, and there was zero chance that he wasn't gonna pick them, no need to speak about it and like get everyone really excited for that matchup or even like start that thought process.
I'll even add in the other part about it that's silly is, I mean, I even agree. I even can see why you said this. After watching the Echo Fox series, I thought TSM looked less likely to beat Cloud9. So by the logic of saying you're going to pick him, you probably should pick him if you were ever going to pick him. That means he was never going to pick TSM. He was just trolling or whatever, right?
And also,
basically, whatever. I mean, it's just a bad joke, isn't it? It's not a very funny joke.
Also, regarding like the whole underdog angle for TSM versus TL, most people I talked to and most players that I talked to that got to scrim both teams recently say TSM is better.
Mate, I don't ever want... You know what? Yeah. Take those scrim bucks, cash them in, and buy a fucking TV. Because last I checked, scrim bucks are worth nothing.
Mm-hmm. I do think TSM has the best chance to beat TL. But the problem is that they have a lot of problems versus C9.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And I mean, this is the benefit of TL getting to be first seed, is they get to choose the easiest path.
Exactly.
But yeah, I'm not a big fan of Steve saying that. I get it's like a joke and everything, but...
Okay.
And I have no problem with them taking the easy route to finals. And
I think it's a smart move to do. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, because I mean, you're trying to win a championship. You're not trying to prove, which fan base is better. Like, prove yourself that part. So, but yeah, I think if TSM can get past C9, I think they have a really good chance to win.
So to go back to more of the TSM Cloud9 stuff and how TSM can win, I think for TSM to win, Bjergsen has to have a fucking heyday and he has to show up way more than Niski. He has to outpressure Niski and he has to tip topside back to TSM favor. Like picking stuff like Lissandra and getting 3-man dives off topside. And also another thing that can happen is Niels and Smoothie actually looked on fucking fire when they played versus you guys later half of the series. When he was picking stuff like Lucian, he was picking stuff like Kalista, getting 20 CS lead on Apollo just through pure laning without jungle pressure. Or I said Niels, but Zben.
Yeah.
If bot side can have also another heyday, because Sneaky and Zeyzal, one of their weakness is in lane, and that's where they can get a big lead. So,
I mean, Sneaky in lane is like
it's
such
not
a
that big a weakness, is it? Come on.
It really isn't. I mean, this guy.
It's not like they're gonna hard lose lane.
If I had to point out one weakness for Sneaky, I would say it's lane. It would be his lane. I think his team fight is top notch.
Sven's not really that sick a laner, mate.
He isn't, but we're talking about ways that TSM could win. If TSM could win, then it would have to be off like bot side going off, like Niels playing, or I keep saying Niels, Zven playing Kalista, Lucian, and getting a big lead again.
Yeah, I think TSM really needs to not pick like bot lanes to just kind of like farm even. I think that's like a trap they don't want to get into. I think they need to pick like really aggressive bot lanes that they can actually like push leads through and be able to get that kind of like mid roam that you're talking about. I think if they go back to playing, just playing like Ezreal or even playing like Jinx and just kind of farming even, I think that's gonna be really poor for them in the series. I think they're gonna have to play Kalista, and I think they're gonna have to play Lucian, and they're gonna have to get that bot side control with Vision and be able to snowball the game there.
There's two angles I want to go at here. So one, it's a point I've made in the past, but I'll reiterate because I think it's a point worth making as people are thinking going into this series, right? So it's actually not usually an advantage to be a team that tries to be really proactive early in the playoffs. Like in the playoffs, you want your strength to be mid to late, closing the game out. And so as a result, because the reason why, logically, is because it's a lot more pressure to have to know you're on a timer, like you say, if you don't have scaling champions, to know you have to get a certain lane ahead, to know you have to gank this guy at a certain time or get his pathing down. That's a lot of pressure. And if you fuck that up at all, the game's done because that was your game plan. So as a result, I'd much rather be the team, and Cloud9 doesn't do this all the time, but they can be the team that's like, we can sit back a bit or we can react. Like I've said, Cloud9's way better at playing from behind the TSM. So what the other point I want to tie it to is this. Everyone's been making this comparison between North America and Europe because what they do is they say, look, Team Liquid is like G2, not playing style, but they were the dominant teams, and at the end, their playing style showed a little bit of cracks. And then the more apt one is obviously because Fnatic and TSM came from bad starts and both had really strong splits. They do that comparison, right? Origin, Cloud9, they're more like the macro focused teams. The problem with that angle is the only way that TSM and Fnatic are alike is in the fact that they won all the games. Stylistically, Fnatic's a way stronger team in terms of man for man in the whole league than TSM is. TSM's a lot more about Bjergsen.
Okay,
so as a result, I think it's I could see a world in which Fnatic could beat Origin. I think it could happen. If they have really amazing early games, yeah, it could happen. I don't think TSM can do it in 3 out of 5 games.
So where I want to push back a little on is the playoff stuff that you talked about, where the slower, more scaling team is favored in playoffs. I think
it doesn't have to be scaling. I just mean the team that can play from behind, the team that can do stuff in the mid game. I think that's the better skill set to have.
So in terms of mentality wise, and I understand what you mean regarding when there's more pressure in playoffs and that mattering more, I would have agreed much harder with you a year ago. And I think now with the changes that are made, early game snowball and early game priority, with Herald and what you can do after you get the turrets down, it favors the team that's more proactive early more, just in terms of the meta, not in terms of the mindset, but way the game is shifting right now. I think early game priority means a lot, and teams are picking proactive stuff even in playoffs and seeing success with it.
Listen, here's the problem with that is I actually don't know what you mean. The problem is that you're acting as though I said that TSM will get ahead in the early game. No, I'm saying, first of all, I think it's hard to do that in the playoffs, so I don't even know that it'll happen. Cloud9 isn't this. As we just described, we went through all the lanes. Where are they going to get ahead?
Yeah, Cloud9 early game is really good.
You know what I mean? The better
I think TSM is a much more reactive team than C9 as well. I think a lot of times TSM early game is just, unless Bjergsen has a really playmaking champion,
Lissandra,
I think a lot of what they do, Lissandra, but even if he has Zoe or I'm sure there's a couple other ones that could get a lot of control. Unless he has something like that, when you see him play something like Zillion or even playing Ori or something, or even Syndra, it's kind of just waiting to see what the enemy team does and kind of just farming up until he gets a point where he can actually do something. So I think it's going to be hard for them to snowball really, really hard, and I think it's going to be really easy for C9 to make plays because Zeyzal and Svenskeren are really good at starting out river fights and being able to play through lanes. So it's going to be just how TSM can handle the pressure of C9 being really aggressive early.
Basically, Loco, you're right. If TSM got ahead in all the games, they would probably win for that reason. The problem is, I don't think they will, and in the odd times that they do, Cloud9's actually one of the teams that can come back. Look at the Echo Fox series here. If they had, think about how good Cloud9 is at finding fights when they're behind. Echo Fox tried to do it sometimes, but they just couldn't pull off the right fight, or they weren't grouped up the right way, or they came in split up, and got target selected. Cloud9's amazing in those scenarios. They're really, really good. So I can't actually see where the edge is for TSM, except like you say, if a player really obviously if Bjergsen is the best player in the whole server, yeah, he could win a couple of games. Even that probably doesn't win you the series, though, I don't think.
I agree with you. I do think Cloud9 favored. We're talking about ways that TSM can win, and I think that is one of the ways, being proactive early and having Bjergsen or Zben pop off.
What about give us some info on the top lane matchup in this sense then, Solo.
I think for top lane, Licorice is the most complete top laner in the league. I think just from laning to macro team fighting, he does everything well, and his champ pool is really good. I think Broken Blade has a lot of the same qualities that he has, but it's more of a less refined version of what he does. And I think also I don't know how the dynamic works with Svenskeren and Licorice and how they decide how they're going to play through lane and how they're going to gank and set up river control. But them working together is the best top side in the league. They're able to pretty much make plays out of nothing. They're able to always make sure they get heralds or can defend. So, it's a really tough task. I think Acadian, more so than Broken Blade, is going to have to step up because I think the disparity between those two is larger. But it's going to be interesting. Maybe if Acadian can be on Rek'Sai most of the games, or maybe even if they can do some interesting things in draft with flexing Hecarim to jungle and top. If they can, do some of their flexes with Irelia and Akali and win through draft. Those could be useful. But yeah, it's going to be tough. But I think it's going to be a really competitive series.
Plus, here's the other thing, Loco. If you're cashing in the scrim box for TSM, Well, then why don't they win this series?
What do you mean?
If they're super good in scrims, and that's a logical reason as to why they can beat Team Liquid, why don't they beat Cloud9 then? We haven't heard shit about Cloud9 in scrims, have we?
I literally, we talked about it, like their top side being much stronger, and to go more on that, I agree with Colin, like TSM...
Okay, keep going, man.
Why C9 scrim bucks aren't worth the TSM scrim bucks in terms of them being favorites?
Like, it's not a good point. Yeah, by the same logic. Well, no one said Cloud9's the best scrim team, did they?
No, they didn't, but I can see why, that's enough for me to favor TSM over TL, and also stylistically when TSM C9 matches up. So to go more in onto what Colin said, like maybe they do the Hecker and Flex pick for top and jungle and they get a lead, and they could actually win a game or two off it. I think C9's strategy and what C9 has is way deeper than what TSM has. I actually think for game 1 or game 2, or if it was a best of 1 series or a best of 3 series, it would favor TSM much, much more. But when you get into best of 5 and it's a deep series and you're tested on multiple things, and it's not about coming up with one strategy that can beat the other team, it favors C9 so much more. Where as you get longer and longer in the series, I think C9 will do a better and better job of stopping TSM's plans, and it's not going to be the same for TSM for C9. The longer the series gets, the more and more C9 will beat TSM and TSM will struggle.
I even think the fact that they brought out the Hecarim against Echo Fox, that hurts. If that had been like a secret little pocket pick you never knew they were going to play, that could be like cool for one game. Now we've seen it for 2 games local. Like we already know what's going to happen there. And you add in, Licorice can play so many champions. Like you can't ban him out. So I don't even see how you get an advantage in top lane in that sense. I think, like you're right, it could happen in 1 game. Or maybe 1.5 games, but that probably doesn't even win you the game. That's the crazy part.
I think we all agree that C9 is more likely to win. But I will say, if TSM wins games, it's going to be earlier on in the series, not later on.
Okay. All right, what about the other series then?
TL versus FlyQuest. I want to root for FlyQuest, and TL has been TL's just a very unfun team to root for because they're Golden State Warriors. Like they have all the funding. Like they have the best facility. They have the highest bankroll. They openly, like the meme about them is get paid by Steve.
Spend the cash.
Yeah, spend the cash. So they're not a very, like, I would say, a fun team to root for. So I want to root for.
Plus the way they win too is just slowly choke you out and double lift in core JJ, hard carry. And they just play like super smart throughout the whole entire game. So it's a little bit slow.
And then like the whole Thorin grandfather passing away and him still playing, and then like him finally like going to semis, and then like Pobelter's tweet against TL after Pobelter got kicked from TL. Like there's so many reasons I want to root for FlyQuest, and I will root for FlyQuest, but in terms of brain prediction, it's TL hands down. They're both team fighting teams. They're both well-rounded teams. They both like scaling into mid and late game. FlyQuest didn't show me enough side lane play. When it comes to mid and late game team fighting, setting up around objective, no one does that better than TL and NA. And yeah, like when that's what both teams are going to play, it's really hard to say FlyQuest is going to win.
Okay. I think if they just play like they played versus GGS, I think they'll just lose. Maybe they'll get swept, maybe they'll win 1 game. I hope that they realize that they have to play a pretty drastic change in style to be able to win. I think they need to make sure that they always have some type of win condition, whether it be through mid or top in like a 4-1 sense, like a split push sense. I think they need to really high prioritize. I think getting flexing Aurelia is going to be really important. Having an Akali is going to be really important. Just something that's going to be like a massive threat in the game that you can play through one of your solo lanes, hopefully top, and Viper will have to step up a lot, and maybe even try and fit in Nocturne to your comp so you can kind of guarantee that side lane prio. Because I think if they just go into this, we'll just play kind of equal team fighting comps and we'll just try and win through mid game, I just don't think it's going to be possible because TL is just a better macro team, a better team fighting team. So hopefully they realize that and they can kind of prep for it and make it a series.
Go ahead.
I think actually I'll change my prediction. I don't think FlyQuest should win a game. I guess logically there's no real reason they would, because the problem is I've seen them play so many good games this split where they just got the right champions or they had a great bunch of team fights. But actually the problem is if you look at their team, they don't really have any edges in any lanes. Like the one lane you would hope is like what Solo says, like maybe if Viper gets ahead. He's not even like a super sick laner in that sense. Like Impact spent his whole career exactly playing against guys like that and just doing okay. I know it's more of a carry meta now, but even so, that's pretty much his thing. Like that's kind of like what he does in playoffs, just play well against them. Then you go look at the bot lane. Like that bot lane can't compare, mate, and they're not going to get advantages. So if you could get somehow to a team fight even, they could win a game, but I don't think you'll ever get there.
So even in
it's going to be boring, actually. I think probably.
So even in a team fight, right? Who you're like as an AD carry, you're not fighting versus the other AD carry. As an AD carry, who you're fighting versus is the tank and the jungler, and when it's double lift versus Viper, double lift versus Thorin, that's much easier than it is Turtle versus Impact or Turtle versus Xmithy. Impact and Xmithy plays team fight extremely well. So TL, I really want to root. I'm gonna root for FlyQuest, but yeah, it's so hard to make an argument for FlyQuest. It would be like Viper solo killing Impact or something crazy like that.
It's like the other angle as well is against many other teams, by the way. Like if FlyQuest was playing against TSM, I'd say like, you know what, they could get advantages through Santorin. This could be interesting. But Santorin, there's a reason why they have that nickname. He is Xmithy light. Like he's almost as good as Xmithy, but he's not. So I don't even know you get an edge there.
And the argument I guess you can make is how hot Santorin looked towards end of the season, and with Golden Guardians, where Xmithy looked pretty bad in his last few games of the split, and maybe that continued onward. But that's not even a real argument. That's just maybe if that trend continues. So all the argument
a few weeks ago, unfortunately, at this point in time, you know,
all the arguments that you make for FlyQuest is like hopeful. It's not logical. It's like, oh, if this happens, if this happens.
Yeah. I guess they have to do it throughout 3 games, which is really difficult.
Yes. No, I think my problem with that one was, like in a mad way, it feels like it feels like you're being unfair to FlyQuest to say they won't win a game, because it's like they're not a bad team. You know, they can be good actually sometimes, but it's just one of those ones where like this is what I actually do in CS:GO as well. Even if you feel like a team should like win one map in a series in CS:GO, if you look at each map individually and logically the other team is the favorite in every single one, then you should predict the sweep. Actually, it's just, even if it's, you know, I mean, by the way, that's the other reason it's hard, is because it's also really hard to keep focus and win 3 games in a row. But if each single one you do think that team is the favorite, then it should be 3-0. You have to predict it, I think.
I think even if TL like dominates and winning aside, I would really like to see like, obviously I'd like to see Impact and Xmithy get back to form, but I would like to see Jensen kind of have like a really good series. I think throughout the whole entire split, he's been kind of like a little bit of a bystander. I don't think he's been like huge in their wins, and he's kind of just, I mean, he's been a super solid player and he's a great player for sure. But I think going into finals, whoever they play, and going into international, he's going to have to be, you know, super dominant, like head and shoulders above everyone else if they want to compete at that level.
Jensen took a little bit of a backseat. Usually, like when you talk Jensen, like you talk damage numbers, you talk KDA, like the amount of kills he got, like, and how much of a carry he was. The most extraordinary stat about Jensen this split is he only died 12 times the entire split. Jensen did take a backseat, and I'm not sure if TL will change their playstyle for playoffs. Like, maybe they'll lean more towards Jensen. They definitely won't lean more towards Impact.
Yeah, I don't think they should either. I mean, their playstyle playing towards bottom is the best for them, but I think transitioning to be a little bit more mid-centric, especially when champs like Rek'Sai and Jarvan are so good, and like especially with Kindred getting up as well. I think playing through a mage can be really valuable, especially when they get further into the tournament.
Thorin, do you have anything else, or do you want to move on to the finals?
Oh, go then. Wait, we're going to do the finals.
Finals is a little imaginary, but I do want to touch on it. I think
just as hypothetical. Yeah. Right, okay.
I think TSM TL and TSM C9, the winner changes dramatically. I think if it's TSM TL, I would lean TSM, but if it's TSM C9 or TL C9, I would lean TL so much harder. I think as good as Cloud9 is, one thing that's been so extraordinary about Cloud9 is, you think back to Worlds, they're not afraid to play their style, and they're not afraid to be proactive and be fearless versus the best teams in the world. Like, they were proactive versus Korean teams. They were proactive in group stage even when they were down. But when they play versus TL, they play with a mental block. I don't know why they can play like proactive versus Korean teams and not do it versus TL, but ever since I would say like last year in finals, Cloud9 looks better playing a Korean team than they do playing versus TL. They look better playing Africa at Worlds than they were playing TL in LCS finals. So it's really hard to lean towards Cloud9 whenever they're playing TL. As much as I talk well about Cloud9, I think when it's versus TL, it's going to be really different.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is with them. It is a little bizarre that C9 seems to struggle so much against TL. And it's also strange that TSM does so well against TL. I know it's only like best of one, so it's not the greatest sample size. But yeah, I do think that if C9 goes to finals against TL, I don't have any doubt in my mind that TL will be able to win that series. But yeah, TSM I think will go to 5 if they play each other, and I think it'll be really, really close. I think TL still has like the edge because I'm always going to trust like the championship team with a lot of veterans over having 2 people who've never been to like LCS finals. But I mean, yeah, it's. I would much rather see TSM versus TL just because I think the hype in the story would be so strong. I think it would be like kind of an all-time series.
Sure. Like my problem with that is like, again, I feel like to do that, you're imagining TSM at the absolute best that you see in the whole split. Like the big problem I have is I also saw the TSM that like lost to Golden Guardians. I saw the TSM that was like having some dodgy games against some bottom ranked teams. Like that team existed as well. And so my problem is I actually think no matter who wins, I think it's just going to be a boring final. I think Team Liquid will win.
You don't think
like people are because people are doing the opposite with Team Liquid. With Team Liquid, they're going, let's only look at their worst games, which were barely any of, by the way. And with TSM, they're going, let's just look at their best games. It's like in the world where they both turn up like that, I agree, TSM could win, but in 5 games in the finals, like think about it this way, right? What lanes does TSM get edges in local?
If anything, it would be top lane and mid.
And even that's debatable, right?
And I think bot lane is like stalemate for sure. I think Doublelift and Core JJ are better overall, but I don't think Sven and Smoothie are going to be like a liability in the series. I think they might not perform as well, but I don't think they're going to get smashed in lane. I don't think they're going to get like completely outclassed.
I'd agree with you, Solo. In fact, here's the reason why I would agree the bot lane's kind of a push is because like they're not going to like play through bot lane super hard early game in Team Liquid, so the laning phase won't matter that much in theory. But that's actually exactly why I think TSM has a really hard time, because where does TSM get that early game advantage?
Would be
I
top
know
lane,
they did win games.
It has to be top for sure.
Yeah. So that puts a lot of pressure on them. And then now you've got a player who's a rookie, like you say, he has to fucking basically carry the series. That's hard. And not only that, Acadian looks good because that's the style they play. It's going to be hard in the finals, dude, to be doing that every time and have pure confidence, make all the right reads. Like, that's what I say. But by the way, it's the same in every sport as far as I'm aware. If you have, like, that's the reason why they say, like, defense wins championships in, like, football and stuff. If you have, like, a consistent aspect that's based on, like, I can just do these things consistently, you might have really dangerous weapons, but it might be really hard to execute that under pressure and all the world watching you, etc., and then do it again the next game when you've seen that happen. Like, for Team Liquid, I think it's actually a lot easier to game plan.
It is easier to game plan, but I also do think meta shifted towards top lane carries a bit more than, like, let's say earlier on in the season where it's just Urgot Sion. Like, carries are much more viable. Like, stuff like Rides. Like, Rides is a big thing that came back that I think TL is constantly going to have to ban. And if TL encounters something versus TSM where they're like, holy shit, we have to let go of this Rides ban, it's going to be problematic for them. Because Rides is strongest when you can flex it both, but mainly it goes top. It's going to be super awkward for TL to first pick Rides. Versus like TSM, they're going to be very happy first picking Rides and flexing it both to Bjerg and BB.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's going to be a hard puzzle for TL to kind of get through draft, I think, versus TSM, just because top lane right now, a lot of the picks are just so volatile, and there isn't like that much safe inconsistency. Even if you play something like Vlad or Aatrox, which are kind of like the most safe and most consistent, both those picks still have like a lot of counters that can get like outscale inside lane and can win the game through split push. So Impact always kind of finds a way in playoffs to pull off like some type of like, not necessarily like tank pick, but something that's just like rock solid that you're not gonna be able to win through. So I think if you can find something again, then yeah, TL is gonna be really hard to beat because they are kind of like that epitome of defense wins championships. That's why I think the FlyQuest series is going to be really important just to see what kind of stuff they've created in the next 2 weeks, or the 2 weeks they've had.
Like, that's one of those areas as well. It's like, again, it's the same story as the C9 series, Loco. It's like, if TSM can get all these edges, if they can do well in early game, like, if they don't, they're going to get brutalized by double lift in late game team fights. So that is going to happen.
But I've seen it more from TSM being able to do that versus TL than I've seen them do it versus Cloud9. Versus Cloud, like...
No, I agree with you. They have a better chance in theory.
Also, TL crumbles. Cloud9 doesn't really crumble. As you talked about, they're great from playing from behind. TL crumbles when they're behind enough.
Do you think there's a potential for Jensen either versus TSM or C9 to kind of have like a mental block? Because, I mean, he hasn't won a championship yet, and if he's versus Bjergsen again, it's like, what, his fourth final versus him? Fourth final? Where he hasn't won. And then also, if he's versus C9, he's versus his old team. And, I mean, who would want to... If you leave your old team and then still lose the championship to them, then that's going to be pretty tilting, for lack of a better word. But yeah, do you think that kind of pressure can like actually affect him?
Maybe a little. One thing this season is Jensen never has been in like a place where he was pressured a lot, and I feel like he's been very nonchalant this season. Like, he jokes around a lot. Like, I feel like if he's in a pressure situation, like Game 5 situation again, I think that's something that can possibly happen. But that's also like, I don't know Jensen well enough, and I don't know what his mentality has been. It's just been like he breezed through the season, and then they had a sudden downturn due to Xmitty and Impact playing bad. So it wasn't Jensen that crumbled towards the end of the season. Really hard to say if he'll have a mental boom because it's all speculation.
I think the saddest thing is just that we've all picked C9, so we'll never get to see this scenario play out anyway.
Yeah, probably.
You know? What do you think the C9...
I'd like to see what would happen, you know. I would like to know what would happen if they played in best of 5.
Do you agree with like the C9 point? If C9 does go versus TL, like they are going to have a mental block?
It depends, because like I would agree that they have had to this point in time. In fact, the thing I noticed whenever C9 played against Team Liquid is, I mean, first of all, like, I think they had one game I can even think of when they were like even slightly ahead. And then generally, I felt like they just got frustrated because Team Liquid was so good at playing out the game. And it's like they didn't feel like they could do anything. But again, in the finals, I don't know. I could see Team Liquid, C9 winning games in the finals. They've still got... The stupid thing is, I agree with it. I think it's just mental because I think they have so... I think C9 has the most weapons in the league. Like, Team Liquid has the best players, but as you say, they play one style generally. Like, C9 can do everything, basically. So I think they should be able to beat them, but I probably think they won't, unfortunately.
Oh, an offhand question, but do you think we're going to see Golden Glue and Blabber at all?
That seems a bit egregious, doesn't it?
I don't know. I don't think so. Because I think... Yeah, I mean, maybe. What do you think? I honestly don't think we'll see them. I don't think we've seen them enough this split to warrant kind of subbing them in, even if they go down 0-2 in a series or something. I just think that this is kind of the roster they want to roll with, and I think this is the best one they have.
I think Sven's been so good that there's no way we see Blabber. I think he's been on fire, and he's been the core of C9's early game and core of C9 being proactive. There's like less than 1% of seeing Blabber, but I think there is like a small chance of seeing Golden Glue because Niski is still new. There are points where Niski is shaky, so much higher chance to see Golden Glue, but low for both. Any thoughts, Thorin?
Not really. Isn't that the end?
What's the other thing I want? Is there anything you guys want to talk about before end of the episode?
I mean, we can talk about roster speculation if that's about it.
Oh, Huhi dropping. I forgot to mention that completely.
Right. Okay.
So Hui's been officially released from 100 Deep. Thoughts?
I'm not really. I mean, I don't think anyone's really surprised. This was kind of a necessary change. I think it's just going to be difficult for them as well as a lot of the other teams who need NA players to just find like suitable replacements. And I think it might end up just being like a side grade. I mean, if they get someone like Grace, or they get like Golden Glue, or even like maybe DeMonte, since it seems like Clutch is having some internal struggles.
Sure.
I mean, is that enough to like push them over the edge? And do they have to get someone like Dardoch, or do they have to get Blabber as well to kind of like make that difference? And I'm not sure that's like the way to like get to Worlds or make a deep run. But it's kind of a necessary change.
You know what? In the actual interview that we've referenced already with that Golden Guardians coach, Jimmy, I can't remember what his surname is. I actually just can't remember.
They
Jimmy
just call him
Graham or
Jimmy,
something.
yeah.
So, when this guy did that interview, one thing he did say in that interview, which actually was pretty insightful, I thought, I hadn't heard anyone make this point, is that he thinks that North American teams use their academy players completely wrong. And I thought his point was actually very good, which is what he said was, as soon as teams lose, because obviously his team went 0-4, right? So people might have thought, hey, why not try the academy players? That's his point was, like, if you do that, you basically didn't even give the starters a proper chance. Like, you built a team, which means you thought this was the best players that you had available, right? And then you just panic because you lose a few games and you put an academy in. But the problem is, it actually doesn't help the academy player. You think it does because you think he's getting LCS time, right? But he isn't. He's getting LCS time in a team he doesn't play for. So what actually happens is, you bring this guy up, he's probably not going to do that well because he's not the starter and it's not his real team. He's probably going to do okay or bad, and then you're going to think he's definitely not LCS caliber. You're going to put him back down again. You're going to bring back in the starter, and so you actually accomplish neither goal. You don't make the starters really test themselves and see what they're like in losses and wins, and you don't develop the actual academy player, because the academy player, if he is supposed to be the academy player, should develop in the academy league. He should play the whole split, and then if he's good enough, then you bring him in the starting lineup as a real player. I thought it was actually a very interesting point he made, because everyone else in NA does the opposite. They just bring people in as a panic, like for what? And the weird thing is, they do it, like I said, they do it for 1 week. Like for 1 week, you get to play, and then you go back. It's like, the reason why that's an interesting point, I thought, is because you're never going to like find other NA talent in that sense. Because what are the odds you come into, like, let's say you'd come into Golden Guardians and you were, I don't know, AD carry or something. I mean, that's probably the best example because they didn't have a very good bot lane in their academy. But, let's say you'd come into Golden Guardians. What's the odds that in this team that's not your team, you play so well that people are like, right, I'm building my franchise around this guy?
I'm very...
It's not really.
So I think it is very rare, but I've actually had that case happen where the main team synergy was so off and so bad that the team would be better off with academy players that were very, very
but
raw.
yours was different though, Local, because that's the thing. You brought 3 up at once. If you just put 1 player in, that's different. Like you actually brought synergy, logically, Local, the actual synergy was with the academy players. There's 3 of them.
I brought Matt and Dardoch. I'm not sure who the third was.
Wasn't Lolo in the academy at the time?
No, Quas, we started the season with Lorlo.
Right, I forgot that. Okay. He was still a rookie though, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I'm mistaken. Never mind that then. Okay, fair enough.
So I agree with like the general point where like you're putting him on a team with no chance to really like have synergy with them, and it's almost always trial by fire. But one thing that is missing from it, or the opposite context, is it's really hard to improve an academy a lot for top tier academy players. I feel like when Golden Glue, Blabber, or any kind of like absolutely top tier academy player actually plays an academy, they aren't learning much and they're just stomping players that are way far below their development. And them getting starter time in LCS is super valuable for them if they are your actual future and your main team is that fucked. So I think, like, for example, a team like 100 Deeps, right? Where midway through the season, where their roster was absolutely boom and they didn't have a shot, they should have actually tried out Soligo and FakeGot much earlier and gave them much more time to actually play in LCS when the season wasn't done yet. They only gave Soligo and FakeGot time, like, once the season was done. I thought there was...
Yeah, but here's the thing. You inadvertently actually sort of agreed to my point there, because how did you know that they should have given them a chance? It's because they actually did give the other players, the starters, enough of a chance to prove they weren't good, right? And so, logically, you wouldn't have picked Soligo as a starter at the beginning of the split. So actually, you only can make that judgment really strong, because I agree, but you only know it at the end if you get what I'm saying there.
Could you... or go ahead, Colin.
I think part of the issue is everyone, like, not a lot of teams prepare that their roster could even be in trouble from the beginning of the split, right? I think everyone comes in so much confidence that they're going to be a top team and they're never going to have to think about, transitioning players from Academy to LCS. And I think the real long-term solution is that from the very beginning of, like, your 10-man roster situation, you really need to integrate and truly be 10-man, not just 2 squads of 5 that are almost completely different entities. And being able to, like, sub players out in and out, doing in-house or doing, like, internals, and making sure everyone's super familiar so that if you do at any point in time need to try something out, need to switch players, or you don't think a player is taking it as seriously, then it becomes so much more smooth and the transition is much easier for the players, and you actually get some real information besides just being like this kind of trial by fire, or they kind of get the shock factor and you're not even sure if they're good or not, because I mean, throwing one player into a squad that's losing is almost impossible to turn around unless that player was like previously toxic, or your player throwing in is just like this protege.
I mean, Solo, basically in your career, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but isn't that one of the things that you ran into, is because you got these few chances to play some LCS games, people probably wrote you off, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, those are like really extreme. They're more like a mercenary thing, but yeah, stuff like that is hard. I mean, I just don't think people realize how much kind of trust and teamwork needs to go into into a 5-man unit for everyone to like work on the same level. It's not just like, oh, these play styles really mix. It's like you really have to trust your teammates. You really have to respect them, and that's how you really get that extra level of play out of them. And that's why teams like C9 are so good, is because they were able to integrate all their players into like what they're selling and what Reaper's coaching style is. And when you have that, then you can start integrating players in and out, and it becomes seamless.
I mean, CLG tried that this split, and it didn't work for them as well, because I feel like, one, their academy team was much, much weaker than Cloud9's academy team, and also their system wasn't as strong, and like the initial players on the LCS teams didn't have as defined roles, and they were just unfunctional. Like, they were dysfunctional as a team, even from like the LCS level.
You know, that's one aspect, though, we didn't actually break down in the TSM C9 series. I mean, I will admit it's because I don't know much about the draft. I'm not like an expert on picks there. But that's also another area that I think makes the series different from if they played in the regular split. Is like, I would personally expect C9's draft to be a lot better than TSM's. And even if TSM has a good game, I mean, it's a lot easier to then target ban them than it is to target ban C9.
I mean, we talked about it. Like, C9 has more tools, so as the series goes on and there's sniper bans placed on picks that are important, C9 is going to do better and better.
Like you said it yourself, if someone
worse.
target bans Acadian, if he does well on Rek'Sai, I think it gets a lot harder. He hasn't got that many champions he's that good on, mate. He's got a couple.
Yeah, because like there was time period and Acadian has kept showing improvement, we can expect improvement from him. But yes, that's definitely an angle they should target first. Maybe Acadian did pick up 2 more champions and he isn't target bannable. But the moment he starts with Rek'Sai, get him off Rek'Sai and see if he actually has that. Like, call the bluff first and see if he actually improved on that part.
Sure. Anyway, I think that's the end.
Colin, any final words? What are you going to be doing in off season? Like, how'd you feel about being on the show?
I mean, I'm just going to be practicing in off season, so not really anything spectacular, but I'm glad that we survived this.
I don't know, Colin. This might be the last episode.
You guys had me a little worried in the beginning, but I mean, I'm glad we made it
Here's
through.
the thing. I already know. Like, obviously, the real problem is, right, the irony is I actually had just said, like, I'll quit this call, like, just to fuck with Loco, right? And then the problem is, like, my actual VPN did die. So in that moment, it's like, I'm sure you thought I just quit the call, right?
No, I thought if you're gonna quit the call, you would have.
DC.
I thought if you're gonna quit the call, you would have quit the call off of like fuck you, and then you would have quit it. Not I'm gonna quit the call and quit the call.
No, the whole thing is like, unfortunately, the internet just died, so there's nothing you do with that one.
All right, any final words, Thorin?
Not really. That's the end. See you next week.
There is gonna be a next one.
Should be.
Okay. That's good to hear. Well, Colin, thank you so much for coming on the episode. And also...
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm not sure if you're looking at chat, but Jake also said you should reply to his text sometimes.
Okay, I'll give Jake a call for sure.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks everyone for watching.